In the long history of Rome, certain figures rise above the passing of centuries, not because of myth or legend, but because of the quiet force of their influence. Their decisions shaped empires, their ideas shaped generations, and their lives carried a weight that extended far beyond their own time. Julius Caesar is one of those figures, a name that echoes across history, anchored in ambition, strategy, leadership, and profound transformation. Yet behind the familiar stories of triumphs and conflicts lies a quieter journey, a journey shaped by the atmosphere of ancient Rome, its wide marble streets, its crowded marketplaces, and its shifting political tides. A journey shaped by uncertainty, patience, and an ambition that grew slowly, shaped by circumstance as much as intention. This documentary tells that story with calm clarity. Not the loud story of conquest, but the quiet one beneath it. The story of a young aristocrat navigating a fracturing republic, learning to read the currents of power, and developing the discipline that would eventually guide one of the most consequential lives in human history. As the world of ancient Rome unfolds gently around you, the goal is not to rush, not to dramatize, but simply to follow Caesar's life step by step, through early struggles, gradual ascent, and the choices that shape the future of the Republic. You are invited to settle in, breathe slowly, and let the steady rhythm of history carry you. The marble halls, the distant voices of the Forum, the flickering lamplight of old Rome, all become quiet companions as the story begins. This is the calm life of Julius Caesar, told slowly, told clearly, told with a patience that history deserves. Let us begin. The story of Julius Caesar begins in the quiet corners of a Rome that was still finding its identity. In the early 1st century BCE, the Republic stood at a crossroads, shaped by tradition, yet strained by wealth inequality, political rivalry, and the ambitions of powerful families. It was a world of shifting alliances, intense public life, and expectations placed heavily on young men born into established lineages. Caesar entered this world in 100 BCE, into the ancient but relatively modest Julian clan, a family proud of its heritage, yet lacking the wealth that defined the era's political giants. Caesar's upbringing reflected this balance of prestige and limitation. Though his family claimed descent from the goddess Venus through the legendary Aeneas, they were not among Rome's wealthiest or most influential. His father, also named Gaius Julius Caesar, served with dignity but without exceptional power. His mother Aurelia came from a respected family known for discipline, intelligence, and stability. These qualities shaped Caesar's early environment more profoundly than wealth ever could. Aurelia's influence, calm yet firm, provided the steady foundation on which Caesar's early character developed. From a young age, Caesar observed the political world with readiness. Rome's streets were loud with debate, its public squares filled with statues, temples, and citizens engaged in conversations about law and leadership. The city itself was a living classroom. Children of noble families learned quickly how to interpret gestures in the Senate, speeches in the Forum, and the shifting alliances between rising figures. Caesar absorbed these lessons with quiet intensity. He listened more than he spoke, yet his mind worked constantly, forming a deeper understanding of Rome's social landscape. Caesar's early education followed the traditional path of Roman aristocracy. He studied rhetoric, literature, philosophy, and the laws that shaped the Republic. His teachers emphasized clarity of thought, structured argument, and the power of persuasive speech, skills that later became central to his career. Though some accounts describe him as ambitious even in youth, his early demeanor was marked more by attentiveness than boldness. He understood that ambition without discipline rarely led to lasting success. A significant event in Caesar's youth came with the rise of Gaius Marius, his uncle by marriage, and a dominant figure in Roman politics. Marius's military reforms reshaped the Roman army and elevated him to unprecedented influence. For young Caesar, observing Marius's ascent and the intense rivalry it provoked offered first-hand insight into the volatility of public life. The conflict between Marius and his powerful rival Sulla grew rapidly, eventually splitting Rome along political lines. Caesar, though still very young, witnessed the consequences of ambition, loyalty, and the fragility of political alliances. These tensions soon touched Caesar directly. When Sulla emerged victorious in the civil conflict and sought to eliminate supporters of Marius, Caesar found himself in a dangerous position due to his family connection. Sulla demanded that Caesar divorce his wife, Cornelia, who was the daughter of a prominent Marian ally. Caesar refused, a decision that nearly cost him his life. The refusal demonstrated a surprising firmness for someone so young. It was not yet the boldness of a general or statesman, but a quiet conviction that foreshadowed the resolve he would show later in life. Because of this defiance, Caesar was forced to flee Rome, moving between hiding places while Sulla's dictatorship tightened its grip. These experiences left a lasting impression. Caesar lived with uncertainty, relying on friends, caution, and subtle diplomacy to avoid being captured. Yet even during this period of danger, he began developing skills that shaped his future. The shifting environment required quick judgment, strategic thinking, and the ability to navigate complex social networks, abilities Caesar refined throughout his life. Eventually, through the intercession of influential friends, Sulla relented, sparing Caesar and allowing him to return. According to some accounts, Sulla remarked that Caesar contained many Mariuses within him, a comment that revealed both the threat and the potential others saw in him. Though Caesar was still in his early 20s, those around him recognized a combination of intelligence, resilience, and latent ambition that could reshape the political landscape. Freed from immediate danger, Caesar prepared for the traditional first steps in a public career. Yet he did not rush into politics. Instead, he turned toward military service, the path through which many young Roman nobles gained experience, reputation, and connections. He joined campaigns in Asia Minor, where he distinguished himself not by commanding troops, but through small acts of courage and clarity. He performed tasks expected of ambitious young aristocrats, but he did them with a level of discipline that set him apart. One event during this period became the subject of enduring historical fascination: Caesar's capture by pirates. While traveling across the Aegean Sea, he was seized by Cilician pirates who demanded a ransom. Caesar, demonstrating the calm confidence that would characterize many moments of his later life, insisted that they increase the ransom amount, claiming he was worth far more than they demanded. He lived among them with surprising ease, reading, writing, and engaging them in conversation, all while promising with unshaken composure that he would return later to capture them. When the ransom was paid and Caesar was released, he kept his word. He raised a small force, pursued the pirates, captured them, and ensured they were punished according to Roman law. The episode revealed qualities that defined Caesar for the rest of his life: a blend of charm and authority, strategic thinking paired with decisive action, and a steady confidence that rarely wavered. As Caesar continued gaining military and administrative experience, he also developed his skill in public speaking, a critical asset in Roman politics. He studied under renowned teachers, refining his voice, rhythm, and command of rhetoric. Early accounts describe his speeches as clear, expressive, and persuasive. He did not overwhelm audiences with force, but guided them with structured arguments and calm confidence. These abilities helped him build alliances, earn recognition, and strengthen his path toward higher office. By his late 20s, Caesar had returned to Rome, prepared to begin the formal steps of political advancement. He entered the cursus honorum, the sequence of public offices that defined a Roman political career. Caesar moved carefully, building relationships with influential families, supporting reforms that aligned him with popular causes, and avoiding direct confrontation with powerful rivals. His early path was marked not by dramatic moments, but by patient groundwork that gradually expanded his influence. Rome during this period remained deeply divided. Wealth gaps grew wider, political factions clashed openly, and debates about the future of the Republic intensified. Caesar observed these tensions with a keen understanding of their long-term implications. His early experiences, exile, service, study, and the constant presence of political instability shaped a perspective grounded in realism. He did not seek sudden change. Instead, he understood that influence needed to be constructed gradually through alliances, public service, and careful positioning. By the end of this part, Caesar had emerged from a turbulent youth with a foundation of experience unique among young Roman nobles. He had learned to navigate danger, to speak with clarity, to build alliances, and to act decisively when required. The path ahead, through rising political offices, strategic marriages, and complex rivalries, was long and uncertain. But Caesar, shaped by both hardship and discipline, had begun the steady ascent that would eventually transform the Roman Republic. He was no longer simply a young aristocrat. He was becoming Julius Caesar. As Julius Caesar entered the early stages of his public career, Rome was a city of vivid contrasts: grand temples beside crowded insulae, orderly debates in the Senate alongside loud arguments in the Forum, and ancient traditions struggling to survive in a society marked by ambition and economic change. Navigating this environment required sensitivity and intelligence, qualities Caesar possessed in increasing measure. He began to move through Rome's political world with deliberate steps, each one guided by careful judgment rather than impulsive ambition. Caesar's early political roles were modest but meaningful. He served as a military tribune, a position that allowed him to build connections with soldiers and officers alike. These relationships shaped his understanding of the Roman army, not as a distant institution, but as a community of individuals whose loyalty and morale determined the strength of the Republic. Caesar observed how trust was formed, how discipline was maintained, and how leadership shaped outcomes in ways that extended far beyond any single battle. Next, he held the position of quaestor, which marked his formal entry into the Senate. This role involved financial administration and introduced Caesar to the complexities of Roman provincial governance. He was assigned to Hispania Ulterior, a region far from Rome's center, but rich in both economic challenges and political nuance. The experience broadened his perspective. He learned how Roman laws affected distant communities, how local leaders balanced loyalty and autonomy, and how administrative choices influenced the stability of entire provinces. During this time, Caesar's public reputation began to grow. He demonstrated a sharp intellect, a respectful demeanor, and a sincerity that appealed to both senators and common citizens. His speeches, though not yet widely celebrated, displayed clarity and careful structure. He did not overwhelm audiences with emotion. Instead, he guided them through reasoned arguments. This approach set him apart from other emerging politicians who relied more heavily on dramatic gestures or provocative rhetoric. As his influence expanded, Caesar aligned himself increasingly with the populares, a political faction that advocated for reforms benefiting Rome's lower classes. This alignment was not born of spectacle, but of conviction shaped by his experiences. Caesar believed that Rome's stability depended on addressing deep social inequalities, improving access to land, and supporting the rights of ordinary citizens. His stance gained him support among the public, but also drew the attention of conservative factions wary of change. One of the notable moments in Caesar's early career involved his work as an orator in high-profile legal cases. He occasionally represented individuals targeted by political rivals, using his calm rhetorical style to cast doubt on accusations or highlight inconsistencies. These cases strengthened his public image and demonstrated his ability to navigate Rome's legal and political complexities with skill. They also revealed his willingness to support those who lacked powerful allies, an approach that earned him admiration among the people. Caesar's rise was not without obstacles. The political environment in Rome was volatile, shaped by competition among ambitious figures such as Pompey, Crassus, and others whose power far exceeded Caesar's at the time. Caesar understood that challenging these men directly would be unwise. Instead, he focused on building relationships, demonstrating competence, and maintaining a reputation for fairness. His strategic patience allowed him to move steadily upward without provoking unnecessary opposition. During his time as aedile, Caesar became more visible to the public. Aediles oversaw public buildings, festivals, and games, responsibilities that offered opportunities to gain popular support. Caesar organized elaborate events that impressed the people, yet he did so through a calm, measured approach that balanced spectacle with dignity. These events were not displays of extravagance, but demonstrations of respect for Roman tradition. Caesar's ability to elevate public morale while maintaining composure strengthened his standing significantly. His next major step, the office of Pontifex Maximus, chief priest of Rome, marked a turning point. Winning this position required broad support, and Caesar secured it through steady alliances and the trust he had built across social groups. The role carried immense prestige, connecting him to Rome's religious institutions and deepening his influence in both public and private life. It also required restraint, as religious leadership demanded consistency, fairness, and a calm demeanor that instilled confidence in citizens. Throughout these roles, Caesar remained attentive to interpersonal relationships. He understood that political success depended on trust built over years. He cultivated bonds with influential figures, earned respect from younger politicians, and maintained a presence in public life without overwhelming it. His approach reflected a long-term strategy grounded in patience, a willingness to move steadily rather than hastily toward greater power. Yet Caesar's ascent was not driven solely by calculated ambition. He possessed a genuine interest in the functioning of the Republic, in the laws that governed society, and in the ways Rome could adapt to changing realities. His early career demonstrated a capacity to listen, observe, and respond thoughtfully to challenges. These qualities, combined with his growing ambition, positioned him as a figure capable of shaping Rome's future in ways few could yet predict. As Caesar's responsibilities increased, so did the expectations placed upon him. He was now a visible figure in public life, respected by many and scrutinized by others. His ability to navigate political rivalries, maintain alliances, and present himself with calm confidence became essential tools for the years ahead. By the end of this part, Caesar had climbed steadily through the ranks of Roman politics, building a foundation of experience, relationships, and public trust. He was no longer the young man shaped by exile and uncertainty. He had become an influential public figure, clear-thinking, disciplined, and quietly ambitious. The next phase of his journey would take him into deeper political alliances, military command, and a growing role in the transformation of the Roman Republic. His ascent had only begun. As Julius Caesar advanced through the ranks of Roman public life, the broader political landscape grew increasingly turbulent. Rome was no longer a unified republic guided by shared tradition. It had become a stage for competing ambitions, each pulling the state in different directions. Wealthy elites consolidated power in the Senate, while the lower classes struggled under economic strain. Military commanders gained influence through personal loyalty rather than institutional duty. Caesar observed these changes closely, understanding that Rome was entering a period of profound transformation. He recognized that any future leader would need to navigate not only the structures of the Republic, but the shifting emotions of its people. Caesar's response to this climate was neither impulsive nor confrontational. Instead, he relied on a strategy rooted in patience and steady relationship building. He continued aligning with the populares, advocating for reforms that addressed debt, land distribution, and the rights of ordinary citizens. This alignment strengthened his support among Rome's lower and middle classes, yet it did not alienate him entirely from the Senate. Through careful diplomacy, Caesar maintained enough goodwill to avoid direct opposition from powerful aristocrats. His balance between reform and respect allowed him to expand his influence without provoking unnecessary conflict. During this period, Caesar worked closely with influential figures who recognized his potential. One such figure was Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome. Crassus admired Caesar's intelligence and rhetorical skill, and Caesar appreciated Crassus's ability to provide financial and political support when needed. The connection between them was pragmatic rather than ideological, grounded in mutual benefit. While Crassus helped stabilize Caesar's political footing, Caesar offered Crassus access to rising popular support. Their cooperation reflected the complex alliances that defined Roman politics. At the same time, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, known as Pompey, was achieving widespread fame through military success. His campaigns against piracy and in the eastern provinces earned him extraordinary honors. Though Pompey's ascent placed him at the center of Roman power, he faced resistance from senators who feared his growing influence. Caesar watched Pompey's struggles with interest, recognizing that even Rome's greatest commander required political allies. Their paths did not yet formally converge, but Caesar understood that cooperation among ambitious men was often the key to navigating the Republic's instability. Caesar's own political advancement continued steadily. After serving as quaestor and aedile, he rose to the position of praetor, a significant judicial office. In this role, he handled legal disputes with fairness and composure, strengthening his reputation as a leader who balanced firmness with understanding. His decisions reflected an awareness of the difficulties ordinary citizens faced, yet he remained mindful of the legal traditions that held the Republic together. His calm approach during disputes earned respect among colleagues, even those who disagreed with his political alignment. Following his praetorship, Caesar was assigned the governorship of Hispania Ulterior, an opportunity that offered both administrative experience and military command. As governor, Caesar encountered a region marked by economic potential and internal tension. He addressed local disputes, managed taxation, and worked closely with communities seeking stability. His leadership demonstrated a blend of discipline and empathy, traits that made him an effective provincial administrator. Yet it was his brief military engagements in Hispania that first revealed his potential as a commander. He led small operations against regional tribes, demonstrating tactical skill and the ability to inspire loyalty among soldiers. These successes were significant. They brought Caesar honor, increased wealth, and perhaps most importantly, eligibility for the highest office in Rome, the consulship. But Caesar knew that returning to Rome required careful calculation. The consulship was fiercely competitive, shaped by alliances and rivalries that could elevate or destroy a political career. Caesar did not rush. Instead, he prepared by reinforcing relationships, ensuring financial support, and building a coalition among senators, equestrians, and the Roman public. When Caesar finally returned to Rome, he did so with a renewed sense of purpose. The city he re-entered was not the same one he had seen during his youth. Economic inequality had deepened, political factions had hardened, and the Senate struggled to maintain authority. Violence occasionally broke out during elections. Debates were dominated by accusations rather than solutions. Caesar approached this environment with clarity, recognizing that bold leadership required stability, alliances, and a deep understanding of the Republic's underlying fractures. His reputation had grown significantly since his early days of exile and uncertainty. He was now seen as an articulate statesman, a rising administrator, and a capable military leader. These qualities positioned him uniquely within Rome's political sphere, trusted by many, underestimated by some, and increasingly respected as a figure capable of shaping the future. As he prepared for the consulship, Caesar understood that the next steps in his career would not simply elevate his status, they would reshape Rome itself. By the end of this part, Caesar stood at the threshold of his greatest political transformation. He had mastered the early stages of Roman public life, built strategic alliances, and proven his capacity to govern. The path ahead would require even greater balance, diplomacy, and composure. The Republic was changing, and Caesar, with patience and resolve, was preparing to change with it. As Caesar moved closer to seeking the consulship, he entered a crucial phase of preparation, one that required strategic negotiation, strengthened alliances, and a careful reading of Rome's political atmosphere. The consulship was the highest elected office in the Republic, and its holders shaped military, financial, and administrative decisions for the entire state. Achieving this position required more than popularity or competence. It demanded a coalition broad enough to overcome rival factions and withstand the scrutiny of Rome's most powerful families. Caesar began by solidifying the support of the Roman people. His earlier work as edile, his public speeches, and his reputation for fairness had already created a strong foundation. Now he reinforced that foundation by advocating for policies that addressed debt relief, political inclusion, and improved opportunities for veterans and ordinary citizens. These proposals were not revolutionary, but measured attempts to stabilize growing tensions. Caesar presented them with calm clarity, framing each suggestion as a necessary adaptation rather than a dramatic departure from tradition. This balanced approach allowed him to gain momentum without provoking immediate backlash. At the same time, Caesar cultivated relationships with key senators. He understood that even reform-minded politicians required acceptance within the Senate to carry out meaningful changes. Through private discussions, shared projects, and mutual support in legal matters, Caesar built bridges that expanded his influence across factional lines. His presence in the Senate was marked by consistent participation, respectful argument, and a capacity to listen, a combination that earned him a reputation for reliability. While he did not align with the conservative optimates, he avoided antagonizing them unnecessarily. Meanwhile, Crassus continued to support Caesar financially, helping him maintain the resources needed to compete with wealthier rivals. Elections in Rome were expensive affairs, often requiring public events, social obligations, and extensive campaigning. Crassus recognized Caesar's rising potential and invested in him as a long-term ally. Their relationship was not one of simple patron and client, but a partnership built on shared interests. Crassus saw in Caesar a future leader who could stabilize Rome, and Caesar saw in Crassus a powerful supporter whose influence extended deep into economic networks. Pompey, though not yet formally aligned with Caesar, also played a quiet role in this pivotal period. His own relationship with the Senate had become strained, as conservative factions resisted granting land to his veterans and validating his eastern settlements. Pompey observed Caesar's growing popularity with interest. Though they differed in background and experience, Pompey recognized Caesar's potential as a political ally, someone capable of achieving what the Senate repeatedly resisted. Caesar, in turn, understood the value of Pompey's military prestige. Their mutual awareness laid the foundation for future cooperation. With his alliances expanding, Caesar formally announced his candidacy for the consulship. The announcement drew attention across Rome. Supporters praised his leadership in Hispania and his calm competence in public office. Opponents questioned his alignment with populist reforms and warned of the ambitions they believed he carried. Yet the election itself was orderly, reflecting Caesar's careful groundwork. When the votes were counted, Caesar secured the consulship for the year 59 BCE, marking the most significant milestone of his career thus far. Upon assuming office, Caesar acted with deliberate clarity. He introduced legislation aimed at resolving long-standing issues, land distribution for veterans, fairer tax practices in provinces, and measures that strengthened accountability among public officials. His proposals were not extreme. They were targeted responses to problems that had persisted for years. But they faced opposition from conservative senators who viewed reform as a threat to their influence. Caesar approached these confrontations with composure, relying on public support and political alliances to advance his agenda. It was during this year that Caesar's relationships with Pompey and Crassus deepened, leading to the informal political alliance later known as the First Triumvirate. The agreement was not a dramatic pact, but a pragmatic understanding. Three powerful individuals, each with unique strengths, choosing to support one another in the face of Senate resistance. Caesar provided diplomatic skill and popular support. Pompey offered military prestige. Crassus contributed financial power. Together, they formed a coalition capable of passing reforms and stabilizing political tensions. As consul, Caesar maintained a steady public presence. He avoided unnecessary displays of authority and focused instead on effective governance. His speeches remained calm and structured, guiding citizens through complex issues without provoking fear or hostility. His demeanor conveyed responsibility rather than dominance. This balanced approach strengthened the legitimacy of his office and allowed him to accomplish significant reforms despite ongoing opposition. By the end of his consulship, Caesar had successfully positioned himself as one of Rome's most influential leaders. The laws he passed, the alliances he formed, and the public support he cultivated set the stage for the next major phase of his life. A proconsular command that would take him far from Rome and transform him from an ambitious statesman into a celebrated general. By the close of this part, Caesar stood on the threshold of a dramatic new chapter. He had navigated the complexities of Roman politics with discipline and foresight. He had earned public trust, secured strategic alliances, and demonstrated the clarity needed to lead during turbulent times. Ahead of him lay the provinces of Gaul, and the campaigns that would change Rome forever. When Julius Caesar completed his consulship, he stepped into one of the most consequential assignments of his life: the proconsular governorship of Cisalpine Gaul, Illyricum, and later Transalpine Gaul. This command granted him military authority over vast regions that bordered the unpredictable territory beyond Rome's northern frontier. For Caesar, the appointment was more than a political opportunity. It was the beginning of a long, complex campaign that would shape both his own future and the fate of the Republic. The Gallic provinces at this time were defined by shifting alliances, tribal migrations, and economic tensions that frequently spilled over into Roman territory. While some tribes maintained cooperative relationships with Rome, others resisted Roman influence or sought to expand their own power. This delicate balance required a leader capable of responding quickly, negotiating thoughtfully, and employing force when necessary. Caesar approached the assignment with calm clarity, understanding that his success depended on reading the environment as carefully as he read political dynamics in Rome. One of the earliest challenges Caesar faced involved the Helvetii, a confederation of tribes planning a mass migration across Roman-allied lands. Their movement threatened the stability of the region, both for Rome and for the tribes already living there. Caesar responded methodically. He first ensured that his legions were properly supplied, equipped, and organized. Then he positioned himself strategically near the Rhone River, where he blocked the Helveti's passage. His actions demonstrated a balance of firmness and preparation, the foundation of his military leadership. The Helvetii sought negotiation, offering terms that would allow them to pass peacefully. Caesar listened, considered their proposal, and declined. He believed that allowing such a large force to move freely posed too great a risk. His decision was rooted not in aggression, but in a consistent commitment to Rome's security. After rejecting the proposal, Caesar acted swiftly, constructing fortifications and preparing his legions for the possibility of conflict. His calm and disciplined approach signaled to allies and adversaries alike that he intended to maintain order on Rome's terms. When the Helvetii attempted alternate routes, Caesar responded with a series of measured engagements. His legions demonstrated cohesion, discipline, and flexibility, qualities that Caesar had already begun cultivating. Battles were fierce but controlled, with Caesar directing movements carefully to minimize unnecessary risk. He monitored terrain, adjusted formations, and ensured that communication remained clear. These early encounters revealed his ability to combine long-term strategy with quick, tactical decisions. As the campaign progressed, Caesar pursued the Helvetii across varied landscapes, from river crossings to open plains. His pursuit was steady rather than rushed, reflecting his understanding that endurance, organization, and morale often determined the outcome of extended operations. When the final confrontation arrived, Caesar's forces prevailed. He then offered terms that reflected both firmness and consideration. The Helvetii were allowed to return to their homeland under Roman oversight, reinforcing stability while avoiding excessive punishment. This approach, decisive yet measured, became characteristic of Caesar's time in Gaul. He recognized that Rome's interests were best served by a balance of strength and controlled diplomacy. This balance also shaped his relationships with other tribes. When the Aedui, long-standing Roman allies, sought his help against the Ariovistus, a Germanic leader expanding aggressively into Gaul, Caesar responded with seriousness. The request highlighted the fragile power structures in the region and demonstrated the importance of maintaining trust with allied peoples. Caesar met with Aeduan leaders, listened to their concerns, and assessed the political implications of intervention. He understood that ignoring the request risked losing credibility among Rome's allies, while intervening carried the possibility of significant conflict. After considering these factors, he chose to act. His response was guided not by ambition alone, but by a recognition that stability in Gaul depended on supporting loyal partners. Before engaging Ariovistus, Caesar attempted diplomacy. He requested meetings, proposed solutions, and emphasized Rome's role in protecting its allies. Ariovistus rejected these overtures, responding with dismissiveness. This refusal made conflict increasingly likely. Caesar prepared accordingly, ensuring that his legions were ready for any possibility. His calm preparations contrasted sharply with Ariovistus's unpredictable behavior, reinforcing Caesar's growing reputation as a stable leader in a volatile environment. When the confrontation finally occurred, Caesar used careful planning to secure victory. His forces took advantageous positions, controlled key terrain, and executed maneuvers with discipline. The battle was intense but decisive. Ariovistus fled, and his forces dispersed across the Rhine. Caesar's victory helped stabilize the region and reassured Rome's allies that their agreements carried meaningful protection. These early campaigns showcased Caesar's emerging strengths: strategic foresight, diplomatic patience, and a capacity to inspire loyalty among his troops. Soldiers under his command began to view him not simply as an official from Rome, but as a leader who shared their hardships, rewarded their efforts, and guided them through difficult terrain with composure. Caesar made himself visible in camps, listened to concerns, and ensured fair distribution of supplies. The quiet trust that grew between him and his men would later become one of the defining elements of his military career. Meanwhile, news of Caesar's victories reached Rome. His successes strengthened his political standing and unsettled his opponents, who feared the influence he was accumulating. Supporters praised his discipline and effectiveness, seeing in him a leader capable of addressing the Republic's challenges. His rising popularity contributed to shifting alliances and deepened the tensions that had been building within Roman politics. By the end of this part, Caesar had established a firm foundation in Gaul. He had secured early victories, reinforced alliances, and demonstrated his ability to manage both military and diplomatic responsibilities with measured precision. The stability he brought to the region, however, was temporary. Larger conflicts, shifting tribal coalitions, and rising political stakes awaited him in the next phase of his campaigns. Following his early victories, Caesar turned his attention to strengthening the foundations of Roman influence in Gaul. He understood that success in the region required more than defeating immediate threats. It demanded long-term strategy, building alliances, preventing rivalries among tribes, and ensuring that Rome's presence remained credible and consistent. Caesar approached this challenge with the same calm discipline that had guided his initial campaigns, viewing each decision as part of a larger structure gradually taking shape. One of the first issues Caesar addressed was internal stability among allied tribes. Rivalries among the Aedui, Sequani, and other Gallic peoples persisted even after the removal of Ariovistus. Caesar held meetings, listened to grievances, and encouraged peaceful resolutions. He emphasized fairness and reminded tribal leaders of the mutual benefits of cooperation. His approach earned him respect and reinforced the sense that Rome's presence brought structure rather than chaos. By supporting mediation instead of imposing unilateral demands, Caesar strengthened trust without appearing overbearing. At the same time, Caesar expanded his reconnaissance efforts. He sought a clearer understanding of Gaul's geography, tribal networks, and economic conditions. His officers mapped rivers, forests, and supply routes. Scouts reported movement among distant tribes, offering early warnings of potential conflicts. Caesar believed that preparation was essential for avoiding unnecessary battles. Knowledge gave him the advantage of anticipation, allowing him to position legions strategically before tensions escalated into open warfare. Despite his efforts to maintain peace, the region's complexity soon produced new challenges. The Belgae, a powerful coalition in northern Gaul, began mobilizing. Their actions were motivated by fear, concern that Rome's growing influence threatened their autonomy. Caesar responded by gathering intelligence, strengthening garrisons, and preparing for potential conflict. He did not rush into battle. Instead, he analyzed their intentions and assessed the risks they posed to Rome's interests. When the Belgae attacked allied territories, Caesar intervened decisively. He marched north with calculated precision, moving his legions at a pace designed to protect vulnerable communities while maintaining readiness for engagement. The Belgae, confronted with Caesar's organized response, split into separate groups, requiring Caesar to adapt his strategy. He conducted a series of coordinated campaigns that targeted each coalition member, using his legion's discipline to maintain momentum. These operations demonstrated Caesar's ability to manage numerous variables simultaneously: terrain, timing, and tribal alliances, all while preserving the morale of his forces. One of the most notable engagements occurred against the Nervi, a tribe known for their fierce resistance and tactical skill. The Nervi launched a sudden and aggressive attack during Roman fortification efforts, catching parts of Caesar's forces by surprise. Yet even amid the initial disruption, Caesar remained composed. He moved quickly across the battlefield, issuing orders that restored coordination and allowed the legions to regain formation. His presence encouraged his troops, who responded with renewed discipline. The battle was intense, But Caesar's calm leadership contributed significantly to the eventual Roman victory. Following these campaigns, Caesar allowed time for rest and reconstruction. He understood that maintaining the loyalty of his soldiers required attention to their well-being. He improved camp infrastructure, ensured adequate food supplies, and recognized acts of bravery. These measures reinforced a sense of stability within the legions. Caesar's leadership style, rooted in shared hardship and mutual respect, deepened the bond between commander and soldier, an essential factor in the extended campaigns still ahead. During periods of winter encampment, Caesar focused on administrative and diplomatic work. He met with tribal leaders to evaluate agreements, address disputes, and assess regional changes. He wrote dispatches to Rome, detailing military developments with clarity, offering justification for his actions, and strengthening his public narrative. These reports helped shape Roman perception of the Gallic campaigns, emphasizing Caesar's competence and presenting the conflict as both necessary and manageable. His calm explanation of events contrasted with the political tensions emerging in Rome, where debates about power and constitutional authority continued to intensify. Despite Caesar's successes, the underlying conditions in Gaul remained fragile. Tribes continued to shift alliances, external groups monitored Roman expansion with caution, and economic pressures influenced decisions across the region. Caesar understood that stability was temporary and required continuous attention. He maintained regular meetings with his officers, encouraged reconnaissance missions, and remained alert to signs of unrest. His awareness of these dynamics demonstrated his ability to view the campaign not as a series of isolated battles, but as an evolving system requiring constant adjustment. As Caesar's influence in Gaul expanded, so did the scale of responsibilities he carried. The campaigns demanded logistical planning, diplomatic insight, legal judgment, and strategic foresight, all executed simultaneously. Caesar balanced these demands through disciplined routines, clear communication, and a steady presence among his troops. His ability to navigate these responsibilities with calm efficiency reinforced his growing reputation as one of Rome's most capable leaders. By the end of this part, Caesar had transformed the Gallic provinces. Early threats had been neutralized, alliances strengthened, and Roman influence established across vast territories. Yet beneath the surface, new challenges were forming. Distant tribes observing Roman movements, internal tensions simmering among Gallic leaders, and political pressures building steadily in Rome. The next chapter of Caesar's campaign would bring even greater conflicts and shape his path toward unprecedented power. As Julius Caesar's influence deepened across Gaul, the region entered a period of both stability and underlying tension. Rome's presence had reshaped alliances, altered trade routes, and introduced new expectations among tribes once governed solely by their own customs. Many Gauls accepted these changes, valuing the protection and economic opportunity that Roman rule provided. Others viewed the expanding influence with suspicion, fearing the erosion of autonomy and the increasing demands placed upon them. Caesar, fully aware of these mixed sentiments, approached the situation with measured attention, recognizing that peace depended on understanding both cooperation and resistance. During this period, Caesar continued to refine the administrative structure of Gaul. He encouraged trade, encouraged communication between tribes, and enforced laws designed to reduce internal disputes. His consistent presence offered a sense of order, and his diplomatic efforts reinforced the perception that Rome sought stability rather than dominance. Yet Caesar understood that such stability was not permanent. The complex network of tribal relationships meant that even minor grievances could escalate, especially when outside pressures changed local conditions. Caesar monitored these dynamics closely, aware that any shift could require a swift response. The first significant test of this evolving structure came from the Eburones, a tribe led by Ambiorix. What began as a seemingly small dispute quickly escalated into a dangerous revolt. Ambiorix, skilled in persuasion and aware of the frustrations among neighboring tribes, encouraged a resistance against Roman winter camps stationed near his territory. He approached Roman officers with deceptive friendliness, claiming that he wished to warn them of a larger uprising. The Roman officers, uncertain but cautious, agreed to negotiate. Ambiorix then convinced them to leave their encampment under the promise of safe passage, only to launch an ambush once they were exposed. The attack was devastating. A significant portion of the Roman force was overwhelmed before they could form proper defensive positions. Reports of the ambush spread quickly through the province, creating anxiety among other winter camps. Caesar received the news with resolute calmness. Though deeply concerned by the loss, he reacted not with panic but with disciplined urgency. He understood that the situation required immediate action, not only to punish the revolt, but to prevent it from inspiring broader resistance across the region. Caesar began by assembling nearby legions and marching rapidly toward the affected territories. His movements were calculated to restore confidence among allied tribes while dissuading others from joining the rebellion. As he advanced, he gathered information from scouts, assessed tribal sentiment, and evaluated the risk of further unrest. Caesar's ability to process multiple layers of information simultaneously allowed him to make decisions that balanced speed with caution. Each step forward reinforced his intention to address the revolt comprehensively. Once in the region, Caesar encountered additional challenges. Some tribes hesitated to reveal their positions, fearing retribution from either Rome or their neighbors. Caesar addressed these concerns through public assemblies and private conversations, offering assurances of fairness to those who supported peace. His balanced approach prevented immediate escalation and encouraged cooperation from those who might have otherwise remained neutral. These diplomatic efforts demonstrated Caesar's commitment to using reason before force, a principle that strengthened his long-term authority. Nevertheless, decisive military action was necessary. Caesar targeted the strongholds associated with Ambiorix and the Eburones, conducting operations that disrupted their ability to coordinate further attacks. He deployed the legions in ways that allowed for flexibility across a wide area, knowing that Ambiorix relied on mobility rather than fixed defensive positions. Caesar's strategies emphasized intelligence, adaptability, and endurance, enabling him to gradually contain the revolt. Although Ambiorix himself escaped, the rebellion's capacity to inspire broader conflict diminished significantly. Throughout these operations, Caesar paid close attention to the morale of his troops. The earlier ambush had affected confidence, and the harsh winter conditions added fatigue. Caesar spent time in the camps, speaking with officers, reviewing logistics, and ensuring that supplies were distributed fairly. His presence reminded the soldiers that they were part of a coordinated effort, guided by a leader who shared their hardships. This steady reassurance allowed the legions to maintain cohesion despite the challenges of terrain, weather, and uncertainty. As the revolt subsided, Caesar evaluated the deeper causes behind it. He recognized that Roman rule in Gaul, though stabilizing in many respects, introduced shifts that altered traditional structures. Some tribes adapted quickly, while others struggled with the changes. Caesar understood that military victories alone could not secure lasting peace. He needed to reshape regional expectations, reinforce alliances, and strengthen the administrative frameworks that supported Roman governance. These reflections informed his actions in the years to come. The revolt also heightened Caesar's awareness of shifting political circumstances in Rome. His opponents in the Senate increasingly questioned his motives, viewing his growing influence with suspicion. Caesar recognized that his success in Gaul made him both admired and feared. The balance of power in the Republic was delicate, and the achievements that strengthened his position also made him vulnerable to political attack. This duality underscored the importance of maintaining support among both the people and the military. By the end of this part, the immediate dangers in Gaul had been contained. The region was once again under Roman control, though tensions lingered. Caesar had responded to rebellion with decisive action, yet he approached the aftermath with careful reflection. His leadership remained grounded in discipline, clarity, and a steady awareness of the complexities surrounding him. The next phase would test these qualities further as new alliances formed, old rivalries resurfaced, and the vast landscape of Gaul prepared for conflicts larger than any Caesar had yet faced. With the revolt of Ambiorix contained, Julius Caesar turned his attention to reinforcing stability across Gaul. He knew that localized unrest could quickly expand if neighboring tribes perceived Rome as vulnerable. The winter campaign had exposed tensions beneath the surface, but it also revealed the legion's resilience and Caesar's ability to manage crises calmly. Moving forward, he focused on strengthening communication between Roman commanders, improving fortifications, and maintaining steady contact with allied tribes. These efforts reflected his belief that stability depended on preparation, transparency, and consistent leadership. Despite these measures, new challenges arose. The Carnutes, a tribe situated in central Gaul, expressed increasing dissatisfaction with Roman authority. Their territory, located at a cultural crossroads, frequently served as a gathering place for leaders who felt threatened by Rome's influence. While Caesar acknowledged the legitimacy of some grievances, he understood that discontent among the Carnutes could inspire broader coordination among tribes. To mitigate this risk, he increased diplomatic engagement, meeting with tribal representatives and reaffirming agreements that emphasized Rome's desire for cooperation rather than domination. Caesar also faced growing concerns from the Belgae in the north. Although earlier campaigns had weakened their power, several tribes continued to resist Roman oversight. Reports indicated that they were rearming, forming alliances, and preparing for possible conflict. Caesar responded with careful assessment. He strengthened garrisons near the northern frontier, increased patrols, and ensured that supply lines remained secure. These precautions highlighted his preference for preventing conflict when possible, recognizing that stability required constant vigilance. Meanwhile, political tensions in Rome began to intensify. The first triumvirate, Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, remained functional, but underlying strains became more visible. Pompey's growing alignment with the Senate, combined with Crassus's desire for military glory, created pressure within the alliance. Caesar monitored these developments closely. Although his campaigns in Gaul kept him physically distant from Rome, he maintained regular communication with allies, supporters, and political advisors. He understood that his position depended not only on victories in Gaul, but on maintaining influence within the Republic's shifting power structure. Amid these political dynamics, Caesar continued expanding his military operations. He recognized that controlling Gaul required addressing both immediate threats and long-term risks. In response to various reports of unrest, he organized multiple coordinated campaigns across the region. These operations focused on tribes that resisted Roman governance, on areas where internal disputes disrupted peace, and on locations where supply routes required protection. His ability to manage simultaneous campaigns demonstrated exceptional organizational skill. One of the most complex challenges involved the Veneti, a maritime tribe along the Atlantic coast. Their control of coastal routes and reliance on naval strength posed difficulties unfamiliar to the Roman legions. When the Veneti detained Roman envoys, Caesar responded with a methodical campaign designed to address both the political insult and the logistical threat. He ordered the construction of ships, worked with experienced sailors, and adapted Roman tactics to suit the coastal environment. The campaign required persistence and innovation, qualities that Caesar's leadership readily provided. Ultimately, the Veneti were defeated, restoring Roman authority along the coastline. Following these victories, Caesar allowed time for the troops to rest and recover. He understood that long-term campaigns placed immense strain on the legions. Restoring morale through predictable routines, improved living conditions, and recognition of effort helped maintain the cohesion necessary for continued operations. Caesar's attentiveness to his soldiers' needs strengthened their loyalty and prepared them for the challenges ahead. Throughout the winter months, Caesar continued his administrative work. He reviewed reports, mediated tribal disputes, and sent detailed dispatches to the Senate. In these communications, he presented his actions with clear justification, emphasizing the necessity of each campaign and the positive outcomes for Roman security. These dispatches played a significant role in shaping public perception back in Rome, where citizens followed the progress of the Gallic War with growing interest. Yet, beneath the surface, the next major conflict was already forming. The tribes of Gaul, diverse, proud, and increasingly aware of the implications of Roman expansion, began exploring new alliances. Leaders who once saw each other as rivals now recognized the value of cooperation. Caesar's earlier campaigns had reshaped the region, but they also introduced a shared sense of urgency among Gallic tribes cautious of Roman power. As Caesar reflected on these developments, he understood that the coming years would bring larger, more coordinated resistance. The Gallic War was no longer a series of disconnected campaigns. It was evolving into a broader struggle for control of the region, one that would require unprecedented effort, strategic vision, and mental clarity. By the end of this part, Caesar had successfully navigated multiple revolts, strengthened Roman authority, and maintained his leadership despite growing political tension. Yet the signs of a greater conflict had become unmistakable. The unified resistance that would define the most famous phase of Caesar's Gallic Wars was approaching, led by a figure whose name would forever be linked with Caesar's own, Vercingetorix. As Julius Caesar continued consolidating Roman power across Gaul, subtle signs of coordinated resistance began to emerge. Tribes that had once acted independently now shared concerns about the consequences of Rome's growing influence. They observed the shifting balance of authority, the presence of Roman garrisons, and the steady expansion of Caesar's military and administrative structures. While many still cooperated with Rome, others quietly questioned whether their autonomy could survive under increasingly intrusive oversight. These questions created fertile ground for the rise of a unifying figure, someone capable of transforming scattered anxieties into organized resistance. That figure emerged from the Arverni, one of the most influential tribes in central Gaul. His name was Vercingetorix, a young nobleman with both lineage and leadership qualities that resonated deeply within Gallic society. Vercingetorix possessed a combination of charisma, discipline, and strategic awareness that distinguished him from other tribal leaders. He recognized that Rome's presence, left unchecked, would gradually reshape Gaul in ways that diminished the power and identity of its native peoples. His response to this realization was measured and deliberate. Rather than initiate immediate conflict, he sought to understand the political landscape and build alliances with tribes facing similar concerns. Vercingetorix's initial rise to power was met with internal opposition. Some members of his own tribe feared the consequences of resisting Rome, believing that Caesar's military strength made defiance too dangerous. In a dramatic early moment, Vercingetorix was expelled from his home city due to these disagreements. Yet, instead of retreating, he used this setback to deepen support among rural clans and minor leaders who admired his determination. His calm confidence inspired loyalty, and gradually he assembled a coalition strong enough to challenge the leadership within his tribe. When he eventually returned to the Arverni capital, He did so not as a rebellious outcast, but as a recognized leader backed by a growing movement. Caesar, meanwhile, had begun his winter encampment, believing that the immediate threats of the previous campaigns were under control. He continued monitoring reports, but the scale of Vercingetorix's influence had not yet become fully visible. Caesar's attention remained divided between Gaul and the political tensions in Rome, where alliances were shifting, and the fragile balance of power between Pompey, Crassus, and himself demanded careful management. Nevertheless, he acknowledged that the Gauls were capable of large-scale coordination and maintained readiness among the legions. As winter progressed, Vercingetorix expanded his authority across central Gaul with surprising speed. He understood that defeating Rome required a strategy different from past confrontations. Rather than relying on isolated tribal forces, he advocated for unity, discipline, and a coordinated approach that emphasized mobility and resource denial. His strategy centered on disrupting Roman supply lines, destroying stores of grain, and avoiding open battles unless conditions overwhelmingly favored the Gallic coalition. This approach reflected both strategic foresight and a clear understanding of Rome's logistical vulnerabilities. Word of Vercingetorix's leadership spread across Gaul, reaching tribes previously reluctant to resist. His message, preserving Gallic independence through shared sacrifice, resonated strongly. Leaders from various regions pledged support, forming a network of alliances unprecedented in recent Gallic history. Though internal rivalries persisted, Vercingetorix managed these tensions with diplomacy and firmness, promoting a sense of collective purpose that strengthened morale. His ability to unify diverse groups established him as a formidable counterpart to Caesar. When Caesar received reports of the growing coalition, he reacted with characteristic composure. He immediately assessed the situation, recognizing that the uprising represented a threat far greater than previous revolts. Instead of waiting for spring, Caesar acted quickly. He traveled between winter camps, organizing the legions, and coordinating their readiness for early movement. Snow, distance, and difficult terrain did not deter him. His goal was to demonstrate Rome's continued strength and prevent the rebellion from gaining further momentum. Caesar's winter march became one of the most remarkable logistical efforts of the Gallic Wars. He moved rapidly across snow-covered passes, surprising tribes that expected Roman activity to remain dormant during the cold months. His presence disrupted early coordination among the rebels, forcing Vercingetorix to adjust plans. Caesar's ability to mobilize his forces in such conditions showcased his leadership and reinforced confidence among his soldiers. Despite these early challenges, Vercingetorix remained committed to his strategy. He strengthened his alliances, encouraged scorched earth tactics to deprive the Romans of food, and positioned his forces in areas advantageous for defense. He understood that time favored the Gauls if he could prevent Caesar from accessing reliable supplies. His leadership maintained unity among the tribes, even as Caesar's winter operations threatened to undermine their early gains. As these developments unfolded, the people of Gaul experienced growing uncertainty. Some feared Roman retaliation, others found renewed hope in collective resistance. Marketplace conversations, council meetings, and quiet household discussions reflected a landscape transformed by shifting loyalties and rising stakes. Caesar's legions, though disciplined and confident, also sensed the magnitude of the coming conflict. The winter marches reminded them of the challenges ahead, but Caesar's presence reassured them that they faced these challenges under capable leadership. By the end of this part, the stage for the largest conflict of the Gallic Wars had been set. Vercingetorix had unified tribes with unprecedented effectiveness. Caesar had responded with rapid preparation and strategic mobility, and Gaul, once a region of intermittent unrest, had become the center of a coordinated resistance movement that would test Caesar as never before. The uprising led by Vercingetorix quickly became the defining challenge of Caesar's command in Gaul. The coalition, strengthened by new alliances and unified under a single strategic vision, represented a level of resistance Rome had not faced in the region for years. Caesar recognized that responding effectively required not only military skill, but adaptability and patience. The environment had shifted, and success would depend on how well he could anticipate Vercingetorix's movements, maintain supply lines, and sustain morale across his legions. Caesar began by securing key towns that threatened to fall under the influence of the rebellion. One such town was Cannabum, a major trading center controlled by the Carnutes. The Carnutes had openly aligned with Vercingetorix, launching attacks that endangered Roman commerce and communications. Caesar responded swiftly. He marched to Cennabum, crossed the Loire River under difficult conditions, and executed a rapid assault that secured the town before resistance could fully organize. This operation served both a practical and symbolic purpose. It disrupted rebel coordination and reminded Gaul that Rome retained the capacity for decisive action even amid widespread unrest. Following the fall of Cennabum, Caesar continued moving across central Gaul with deliberate speed. He targeted strategic locations that served as logistical hubs or centers of tribal cooperation. His actions forced Vercingetorix to decide between defending multiple regions or concentrating forces in specific areas. Vercingetorix chose the latter, relying on mobility and scorched earth tactics to limit Caesar's access to food and resources. These tactics placed significant strain on Roman supply lines. Caesar adapted by strengthening foraging operations, coordinating with allied tribes, and maintaining strict discipline within the legions to avoid unnecessary consumption of limited provisions. One of the most critical early encounters occurred near the stronghold of Gergovia, located atop a steep plateau that favored defensive operations. Vercingetorix selected this position carefully, understanding that Rome's strengths were diminished by difficult terrain. Caesar, acknowledging the challenge, approached Gergovia cautiously. He conducted reconnaissance, established fortified camps, and attempted to draw the Gallic forces into more favorable ground. However, Vercingetorix maintained discipline, avoiding traps and controlling access to essential resources. The confrontation at Gergovia demonstrated the strategic depth of both leaders. Caesar attempted a series of feints and partial advances designed to weaken Gallic defenses without committing to a full assault. His legions performed these maneuvers with precision, but the terrain limited their effectiveness. In a moment of miscommunication, several Roman units advanced beyond their intended positions, exposing themselves to counterattacks. Caesar acted swiftly to prevent a broader collapse, but the setback forced him to reassess the situation. Recognizing the risks of continued engagement in unfavorable conditions, he made the disciplined decision to withdraw. Though the retreat from Gergovia was a setback, it reflected Caesar's commitment to rational decision-making. He did not allow pride or momentum to dictate action. Instead, he prioritized the preservation of his forces, understanding that future operations required maintaining strength and cohesion. His ability to withdraw calmly from a difficult position demonstrated leadership that valued long-term success over immediate glory. Vercingetorix, encouraged by the outcome at Gergovia, urged greater unity among Gallic tribes. He framed the engagement as evidence that Rome could be resisted effectively. Leaders from distant regions responded positively, sending additional warriors and supplies. The rebellion grew not only in size, but in confidence. Caesar recognized the shift and adjusted his plans accordingly. He increased reconnaissance, strengthened communications between legates, and emphasized flexibility in troop movements. Despite the challenges, Caesar retained several strategic advantages. His legions remained highly disciplined, capable of rapid adaptation, and skilled in siege operations. His engineering corps could build bridges, fortifications, and camps with remarkable speed. His network of allied tribes continued providing essential support. These strengths would prove crucial as the conflict expanded. One of Caesar's most calculated decisions involved shifting operations toward regions less destroyed by scorched earth tactics. By redirecting his legions into territories with available resources, he reduced supply pressure and positioned himself for future engagements. He also targeted smaller rebel groups to prevent them from merging with the main coalition. These actions gradually reduced Vercingetorix's mobility, narrowing strategic options for the Gallic leader. The shifting landscape of the conflict affected communities across Gaul. Some experienced periods of intense fighting, followed by calm as Caesar or Vercingetorix repositioned their forces. Others faced food shortages due to the destruction ordered by rebel leaders. These hardships brought uncertainty to daily life. Families relocated, tribal councils debated allegiance, and rumors circulated about upcoming campaigns. Despite these disruptions, many Gauls remained steadfast in their support for the coalition, believing that unity offered the best chance of preserving their identity. Meanwhile, Caesar maintained communication with Rome. He sent reports describing the challenges and justifying his actions, emphasizing the scale of the rebellion and the necessity of continued focus on the region. His dispatches helped shape public understanding of the conflict and ensured that supporters remained aligned with his efforts. Although tensions in Rome continued to grow, Caesar's success in Gaul provided him with political credibility that strengthened his position. By the end of this part, the conflict between Caesar and Vercingetorix had entered a decisive stage. Both leaders had demonstrated strategic intelligence, adaptability, and discipline. The early battles revealed the complexity of the uprising and the resilience of the Gallic resistance. Caesar, despite setbacks, remained committed to restoring stability through continuous adjustment and clear judgment. The greatest confrontation between the two leaders was approaching. A siege that would determine the future of Gaul and define Caesar's legacy for centuries. As the conflict between Julius Caesar and Vercingetorix widened, both leaders began preparing for campaigns that would determine the fate of Gaul. The confrontations of the previous season had revealed the strengths and limitations of each side. Caesar's disciplined legions and engineering capabilities allowed him to maintain control over large territories, while Vercingetorix's mobility and scorched earth tactics disrupted Roman supply lines and strengthened the resolve of the Gallic coalition. The months ahead would test not only military skill but endurance, adaptability, and the ability to maintain morale under constant pressure. Caesar started the new campaign season with a comprehensive assessment of the region. He evaluated the status of allied tribes, the condition of the legions, and the availability of supplies across Gaul. Lessons from the difficult engagement at Gergovia stayed fresh in his mind. He understood that success required careful planning and an accurate reading of Vercingetorix's intentions. With these insights, Caesar reorganized his forces into multiple groups, allowing for flexibility and faster response times. By dividing his legions strategically rather than weakening them, he ensured that each unit could support others when necessary. Vercingetorix, meanwhile, continued strengthening his coalition. His leadership resonated deeply among the tribes, who admired both his strategic insight and his commitment to protecting Gallic autonomy. He used recent successes to encourage new alliances, emphasizing that the Romans were not invincible. His message focused on patience, unity, and sacrifice. He urged tribes to withhold grain from Roman troops, burn fields, and relocate livestock, preventing Caesar from sustaining his legions through local resources. These tactics placed significant strain on Roman operations, especially in remote areas. Early in the campaign, Caesar encountered increasing resistance from smaller Gallic groups emboldened by Vercingetorix's growing influence. These groups engaged in hit-and-run attacks, ambushed Roman detachments, and attempted to cut off critical supply routes. Caesar responded by strengthening his reconnaissance efforts. He dispatched cavalry units to monitor enemy movements, gather intelligence, and disrupt communications between rebel groups. His goal was not only to counter immediate threats, but to understand the broader pattern of resistance forming across Gaul. As Caesar moved through central Gaul, he sought to regain momentum by targeting towns that served as focal points for the rebellion. One such town was Avaricum, a well-fortified settlement belonging to the Bituriges. Vercingetorix advised the inhabitants to abandon the town and burn it to prevent Caesar from obtaining supplies. However, the Bituriges, confident in their defenses, chose to resist. Caesar, recognizing the opportunity, initiated a siege. Despite harsh weather and food shortages, the legions constructed siege engines, built ramparts, and maintained steady pressure on the defenders. The siege of Avaricum revealed the resilience of both Roman soldiers and Gallic resistors. Inside the town, morale fluctuated as supplies dwindled. Outside, Caesar's troops endured rain, cold, and hunger, yet maintained discipline under his consistent guidance. Caesar visited work sites, offered encouragement, and ensured that the soldiers understood the importance of the operation. After weeks of effort, the Roman siege works succeeded, and the town fell. The victory provided much-needed provisions and restored confidence among the legions. For Vercingetorix, however, Avaricum's fall served as a reminder of Rome's persistent strength, even under difficult conditions. Following Avaricum, Caesar continued his pursuit of Vercingetorix, who remained focused on conserving his forces and avoiding battles that favored Roman tactics. Rather than engage in open conflict, Vercingetorix positioned himself in locations that limited Roman maneuverability. He targeted Caesar's cavalry, which played a pivotal role in reconnaissance and a rapid response. Recognizing the importance of mobility, Caesar recruited additional cavalry from allied tribes and adjusted his tactics to mitigate these challenges. These adjustments reflected his ability to respond calmly to evolving conditions. Morale across Gaul shifted continually during this period. Some tribes, impressed by Vercingetorix's leadership, became more committed to the rebellion. Others, intimidated by Caesar's victories, hesitated to join the coalition. The uncertainty created an atmosphere of tension in households and council gatherings. Many leaders weighed loyalty, survival, and tradition, uncertain which side would prevail. Caesar and Vercingetorix understood this uncertainty well, knowing that perception could influence allegiance as much as military strength. As the campaign progressed, Caesar sought opportunities to confront Vercingetorix directly. He understood that defeating the coalition required weakening its central leadership. Vercingetorix, equally aware, avoided large-scale engagements, drawing Caesar deeper into territories where supply challenges persisted. Their strategic interaction resembled a series of measured moves, each testing the other's resolve, while avoiding decisive confrontation. Eventually, Vercingetorix chose a position near Alesia, a fortified oppidum situated on a high plateau surrounded by hills. The location offered strong natural defenses and ample visibility of approaching forces. Vercingetorix believed that by concentrating his forces here, he could withstand Caesar's attempts at assault long enough for reinforcements from allied tribes to assemble and encircle the Romans. The selection of Alesia demonstrated his understanding of both terrain and broader strategy. When Caesar learned of Vercingetorix's position, he recognized the significance immediately. The situation presented an opportunity for a decisive engagement, yet it also carried substantial risks. Assaulting Alesia directly would expose Roman forces to attack from elevated positions. Waiting too long would allow the Gallic coalition to gather reinforcements. Caesar responded with a solution characteristic of his engineering expertise: a comprehensive siege designed to isolate the stronghold and force surrender through controlled encirclement. As Caesar deployed his forces around Alesia, he maintained calm, consistent communication with his officers. He emphasized the importance of discipline, precision, and patience. The legions, familiar with large-scale construction projects from earlier campaigns, began preparing for operations that would become the defining feature of the coming confrontation. By the end of this part, both Caesar and Vercingetorix had positioned themselves for the most consequential battle of the Gallic Wars. The leadership qualities of each, Vercingetorix's unifying resolve and Caesar's strategic adaptability, had shaped the conflict up to this point. The Roman encirclement of Alesia represented one of the most ambitious engineering undertakings in Caesar's career. The oppidum sat atop a steep plateau protected on multiple sides by natural cliffs and a broad plain. Vercingetorix had fortified the city's entrances and stored provisions, confident that his forces could withstand an extended siege. Caesar, reflecting on both terrain and strategy, understood that a direct assault would be costly. Instead, he relied on a methodical approach: construct fortifications that would isolate Vercingetorix and prevent any exit or entry. Caesar ordered his legions to build a continuous line of circumvallation, a defensive wall encircling Alesia. The construction included ditches, palisades, towers, and traps designed to deter breakouts. Each legion worked on assigned sections, ensuring efficiency and uniform standards across the expansive structure. Caesar supervised progress personally, moving along the line to observe construction, address challenges, and maintain morale. The legions appreciated his presence, which conveyed shared effort rather than distant command. Vercingetorix, observing the construction from the plateau, recognized the long-term threat it posed. He responded by sending out cavalry units to disrupt Roman operations. These skirmishes slowed progress, but failed to halt the siege. Caesar adapted by deploying auxiliary forces to protect work crews and counter Gallic sorties. The daily rhythm of construction and defense reflected the endurance required on both sides. Each side watched the other closely, aware that the siege would test not only tactics, but resilience. As days passed, Caesar anticipated that Vercingetorix would call for reinforcements from across Gaul. Understanding this, he ordered a second line of fortifications, a contravallation, facing outward. This structure was designed to protect the Romans from external attackers, creating a complete defensive ring that isolated Caesar's forces while blocking both escape and relief for the besieged. The double-walled system, spanning many kilometers, showcased Roman engineering capabilities at their peak. The legions executed the plan with discipline, constructing trenches, ramparts, and watchtowers with remarkable coordination. Inside Alesia, conditions gradually deteriorated. As supplies dwindled, Vercingetorix maintained strict rationing policies to conserve resources. He addressed his warriors and the townspeople with steady determination, reminding them that reinforcements were on their way and that endurance was essential. The emotional atmosphere within the oppidum shifted between hope and strain. Families worried about food, warriors prepared for sudden engagements, and council leaders debated the long-term feasibility of holding out. Yet Vercingetorix's confidence kept the coalition unified. Outside the walls, Caesar maintained a consistent leadership routine. He held meetings with legates, adjusted defensive positions, and reviewed intelligence gathered by scouts. He recognized that the siege involved more than engineering. It required understanding Gallic communication networks, anticipating reinforcement strategies, and preparing for multi-front conflict. Caesar directed his cavalry to monitor distant regions, identifying possible assembly points for Gallic reinforcements. The information they gathered would prove critical in the weeks ahead. In time, reports confirmed that a massive Gallic relief force was gathering. Tribes from across Gaul, inspired by Vercingetorix's call for unity, began marching toward Alesia. The scale of the gathering surpassed any previous coalition. Caesar understood that his fortifications would soon be tested by a force far larger than his own. Yet he remained steady, focusing on strengthening weak points, reviewing battle plans, and ensuring that the legions maintained readiness for a prolonged conflict. As the relief army approached, tension spread across the Roman lines. Soldiers prepared defensive positions, sharpened weapons, and reinforced barricades. Caesar addressed them calmly, reminding them of their discipline, shared experience, and engineering advantage. His words, measured and steady, reassured the legions and emphasized the importance of holding each position with clarity and composure. The soldiers respected his guidance, knowing that their success depended on coordinated effort. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix's anticipation grew. He coordinated with messengers to synchronize attacks with the approaching coalition, planning simultaneous assaults designed to overwhelm Roman defenses. His confidence reflected both strategic understanding and deep trust in the unity he had built among the tribes. The people of Alesia watched eagerly for signs of relief, believing that the coming confrontation would break the siege. The landscape surrounding Alesia became a vast stage for the unfolding conflict. Roman fortifications stretched across hills and valleys, illuminated by campfires at night. Gallic scouts observed movements from distant ridges. Within the oppidum, the sound of preparation echoed through narrow streets. The entire region felt the weight of the impending battle, which would determine not only the fate of Vercingetorix and Caesar, but the political future of Gaul itself. By the end of this part, the siege had taken its full shape. Alesia was enclosed, the Gallic relief army had arrived, and Caesar stood at the center of a carefully constructed defensive network, preparing to face simultaneous attacks from within and without. The decisive confrontation of the Gallic Wars was ready to begin. As the relief army approached Alesia, the atmosphere around Caesar's camps shifted into quiet vigilance. The legions had spent weeks building fortifications, preparing supplies, and maintaining discipline within the enormous ring that surrounded the oppidum. They understood that they were about to face a challenge unlike anything encountered in previous campaigns. Caesar's forces were significantly outnumbered, positioned between thousands of warriors inside Alesia and a far larger force gathering outside. Yet the soldiers trusted the structures they had built and the calm precision of their commander. Their confidence rested on the belief that preparation, discipline, and unity would outweigh numerical disadvantage. The Gallic Relief Coalition was vast, assembled from tribes across nearly all of Gaul. Their arrival marked a rare moment of unity in a region long known for internal rivalries. Leaders debated strategy, choosing positions on the hills surrounding Caesar's outer fortifications. Their plan was straightforward: launch coordinated attacks from outside, while Vercingetorix led simultaneous assaults from within, crushing the Roman defenses under pressure from both directions. The coalition believed that Caesar's forces, stretched thin across miles of fortifications, would eventually break. Their morale was high, strengthened by the belief that this combined effort represented Gaul's last best chance for independence. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix prepared his forces with measured determination. He organized warriors into units, reviewed the layout of Roman fortifications, and instructed leaders on how to coordinate their assaults with the relief army. Supplies had grown scarce, and hunger weighed heavily on the people, but the sight of the relief army renewed hope. Vercingetorix reminded his followers that endurance, not immediate victory, would determine their future. His calm, steady presence reassured the coalition within the oppidum, reinforcing the belief that they were on the brink of a decisive moment. Caesar, watching from the Roman lines, approached the situation with meticulous clarity. He understood that the relief army's presence created a delicate balance. One miscalculation could lead to collapse. He conducted a thorough inspection of both the inner and outer fortifications, verifying that each section was adequately manned and supplied. His focus remained on coordination. He instructed legates to maintain clear lines of communication, reinforcing the importance of rapid signaling across the defensive ring. Caesar emphasized that the battle would require patience, steady movement, and absolute discipline. When the first assault began, it unfolded with intensity. The Gallic relief army tested the Roman outer defenses, probing for weaknesses and launching waves of attacks to stretch the Roman lines. Warriors struck at trenches, climbed embankments, and attempted to cut through palisades. The Romans responded with steady precision, deploying archers, slingers, and cavalry to repel each advance. Caesar moved along the fortifications, offering encouragement and adjusting tactics as needed. His presence reinforced stability, reminding soldiers that they faced the challenge under unified, experienced leadership. As the external assault continued, Vercingetorix coordinated attacks from within Alesia. His forces charged the inner fortifications, aiming to overwhelm Roman defenders or create a breach that allowed them to join the relief army. The Roman legions, though stretched thin, maintained formation. They relied on well-practiced routines, switching positions when fatigued and reinforcing vulnerable points with reserves. The calm, collective discipline of the Roman forces contrasted with the emotional intensity of the Gallic attacks. Throughout the day, both sides endured significant strain. The sounds of battle echoed across the valley, shouts from commanders, the impact of weapons on shields, and the rhythm of Roman horns directing movements. Yet Caesar's defensive network held firm. As the sun set, the Gallic forces retreated temporarily, regrouping to plan their next actions. The Romans used the pause to reinforce fortifications, tend to the wounded, and redistribute supplies. Caesar reviewed reports from his officers and prepared strategies for the inevitable second wave. For the people inside Alesia, the night brought a mixture of hope and anxiety. They had seen the relief army engage the Romans with force, yet they had also seen the resilience of Caesar's defenses. Vercingetorix reassured his followers, reminding them that the Romans could not withstand prolonged pressure. He emphasized that unity remained their greatest strength. Still, hunger and exhaustion weighed heavily on civilians, who increasingly relied on the promise that the next confrontation would bring liberation. For Caesar and his legions, the night was a brief moment of quiet steadiness. Fires illuminated the Roman lines, casting light over the wooden towers and defensive walls. Soldiers rested beside their shields, knowing that the coming day would bring even greater challenges. Caesar understood that the next assault would likely involve more coordinated and concentrated force. Yet, he remained composed. The fortifications were strong, the legions experienced, and the overall plan clear. He believed that, with discipline and patience, the Romans could withstand whatever pressure came next. By the end of this part, the siege had entered its most demanding phase. Both armies had tested each other's strength. The fortifications held, but only barely. And everyone, from Caesar to Vercingetorix to the ordinary soldiers and civilians, understood that the next engagement would determine the fate of Gaul. The next day began with early movement across the hills surrounding Alesia. The Gallic relief leaders, determined to break the Roman defenses, reorganized their forces into concentrated formations. They identified weaker points in Caesar's outer fortifications, areas where the terrain made construction difficult or where the defenders had less natural advantage. Their approach reflected a shift from broad assaults to targeted strikes designed to penetrate the Roman line. Caesar, monitoring the preparations, anticipated a renewed effort and positioned reserves accordingly. The attack commenced with force. Waves of Gallic warriors advanced toward the outer defenses, utilizing ladders, shields, and coordinated charges. Their determination was unmistakable, driven by the urgency of breaking the siege before supplies within Alesia ran out completely. Roman defenders responded with calm precision. They deployed artillery, launched volleys of missiles, and reinforced threatened sectors with disciplined rotations. Signals echoed along the fortifications as officers adjusted positions to counter shifts in Gallic formations. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix launched simultaneous assaults against the inner line. The coordination between the two Gallic forces created immense pressure on Caesar's defenses. Roman soldiers found themselves moving constantly between positions, relying on training and experience to maintain formation under intense strain. Caesar moved quickly between critical points, assessing conditions and issuing clear instructions. His ability to remain composed under pressure reinforced confidence among his troops, who fought with renewed focus. As the battle intensified, the relief army shifted tactics. They targeted a section of the outer defenses built along sloping ground, believing the terrain offered an opportunity to breach the line. The Gallic forces advanced with concentrated strength, pushing deeper than in previous assaults. Roman defenders held as long as possible, but the pressure created moments of instability. Caesar received reports of the developing breach and acted immediately, deploying reserves and ordering cavalry units to reposition. The situation escalated rapidly. Gallic forces neared the top of the Roman embankments, threatening to collapse the defensive structure. Caesar personally moved to the affected area, accompanied by his closest officers. His presence steadied the lines. He ordered archers and slingers to focus on slowing the advance, while legions formed tighter defensive formations. The combination of rapid reinforcement, concentrated missile fire, and steady counterattacks gradually pushed the Gallic warriors back. The breach had come close to success, but Roman discipline prevailed. Meanwhile, Vercingetorix's forces continued their efforts from inside Alesia. They assaulted weak points in the inner defenses, constructing siege equipment from available materials. Despite limited resources, their determination remained strong. The Romans, however, maintained control through constant vigilance. They reinforced vulnerable areas, repaired damaged structures, and used elevated towers to counter Gallic attempts at scaling the walls. The defenders understood that holding their ground meant ensuring synchronized resistance to both internal and external assaults. As the day progressed, exhaustion spread across both armies. The Gallic relief forces launched additional waves, each less coordinated than the last. Their initial momentum waned as casualties increased and morale weakened. Caesar recognized this gradual shift and prepared to launch a counteroffensive. He ordered his cavalry to flank the relief army, exploiting their growing disorganization. The maneuver proved decisive. Roman cavalry units struck the Gallic forces from the sides, breaking formations and causing widespread retreat. With the relief army in disarray, Caesar redirected his attention to the interior battle. Seeing the external support falter, Vercingetorix called his warriors back into Alesia. The people inside the oppidum watched as the relief army withdrew across the distant hills. The realization that no further aid would arrive settled over them with heavy silence. Hunger, fatigue, and the strain of repeated assaults had taken their toll. Vercingetorix spoke to his people with calm resignation, acknowledging that their efforts had reached their limit. The following morning, Vercingetorix made a decision that would shape the conclusion of the Gallic Wars. He approached the Roman camp, surrendering himself to Caesar. His gesture, solemn and deliberate, reflected both responsibility and acceptance. He believed that by offering his own life, he could spare his people from further suffering. Caesar received the surrender with composure, recognizing the gravity of the moment and the courage it represented. The siege was over. Alesia had fallen. For the Roman legions, the conclusion brought a mixture of relief and exhaustion. They had endured weeks of constant pressure, fought on two fronts, and relied on discipline to survive overwhelming odds. Their success reinforced the strength of coordination, engineering, and calm leadership. For the people of Gaul, Alesia marked a turning point, a moment when unified resistance gave way to the reality of Roman power. While pockets of unrest would continue, the fall of Alesia shattered the largest coalition ever assembled against Rome. Caesar took time to address the aftermath responsibly. He restored order, established terms for surrender, and ensured that surviving civilians received necessary supplies. He understood that long-term stability depended on measured response rather than uncontrolled retribution. His actions reflected awareness that victory required not only defeating opposition, but rebuilding trust where possible. By the end of this part, the decisive conflict of the Gallic Wars had concluded. The siege of Alesia had tested the endurance, strategy, and leadership of both Caesar and Vercingetorix. Its outcome reshaped the future of Gaul and strengthened Caesar's position within the Roman Republic. In the aftermath of Alesia, Gaul entered a period of profound transition. The unified resistance that Vercingetorix had built dissolved with his surrender, leaving tribes to reassess their position under Roman authority. Many leaders, once confident in their ability to withstand Roman expansion, now recognized the scale of Caesar's organizational discipline and the durability of his legions. Yet, despite the collapse of large-scale resistance, the region did not immediately settle into peace. Isolated groups, motivated by tradition, fear, or lingering hope, continued to resist. Caesar understood that the months ahead required both firmness and restraint to ensure lasting stability. Caesar began by addressing the practical consequences of the siege. He ensured that civilians received adequate provisions, preventing unnecessary suffering in the winter that followed. His approach demonstrated a balance of authority and compassion, reinforcing the perception that Rome sought order rather than indiscriminate punishment. He negotiated terms with tribes willing to accept Roman oversight, restoring local leadership structures while integrating them into broader provincial administration. These measures helped ease tensions and encouraged communities to return to daily life under more predictable circumstances. Despite these efforts, pockets of unrest persisted. Several tribes in remote regions believed they could exploit winter conditions to oppose Roman forces. They attempted ambushes, disrupted supply lines, and encouraged neighboring groups to reignite resistance. Caesar responded with calculated speed. He mobilized small, agile units capable of navigating harsh terrain, using precise intelligence to track movements and prevent minor uprisings from expanding. His calm coordination of these operations ensured that isolated disruptions did not evolve into broader threats. One of the most significant remaining conflicts involved the Bellovaci, a powerful tribe known for their strategic awareness and strong warrior culture. Led by resilient commanders, they attempted to unite neighboring tribes for renewed resistance. Caesar anticipated their movements, organizing multiple legions to surround the Bellovaci before they could gather substantial support. He applied controlled pressure rather than overwhelming force, offering terms that encouraged surrender while demonstrating that further resistance would be unsustainable. His diplomacy, combined with military readiness, gradually lifted the threat. Additional unrest emerged in Aquitania and among certain tribes in the far north. Each confrontation differed in character, some driven by political ambition, others by long-standing rivalries. But Caesar approached each with steady judgment. He delegated responsibilities to trusted officers, allowing operations to proceed simultaneously across various regions. His legates, trained under his methodical leadership, conducted campaigns marked by discipline and an emphasis on minimizing unnecessary destruction. These coordinated efforts gradually brought the last holdouts into alignment with Roman governance. As stability expanded, Caesar focused on strengthening administrative structures across Gaul. He reinforced alliances with tribes that had cooperated during difficult periods, offering them favorable terms and access to trade. For tribes recently subdued, He introduced systems that balanced Roman authority with local customs. This measured integration helped reduce resentment and ensured more predictable relations between Roman officials and Gallic communities. Caesar understood that sustainable governance required flexibility, consistency, and respect for local identities. During this period, Caesar also addressed the logistics of governing such a vast region. He improved road networks, secured river routes, and established supply depots throughout Gaul. These infrastructure projects served both military and economic purposes, enabling faster troop movements while encouraging commerce. The presence of reliable trade routes increased prosperity in many towns, gradually shifting perspectives on Roman rule. For communities that had endured years of conflict, stability offered an opportunity to rebuild and adapt. With Gaul largely pacified, Caesar turned his attention to writing detailed commentaries documenting his campaigns. These writings served multiple purposes. They provided clear accounts of his military decisions, explained the necessity of his actions, and presented the Gallic Wars in a structured narrative that Romans could understand. The commentaries strengthened his reputation, increased his political influence, and shaped public perception of the complex challenges he had faced. Through measured prose, Caesar offered insight into both strategy and leadership, emphasizing calm decision-making under uncertain conditions. Yet, even as Gaul entered a period of relative peace, Caesar sensed shifting pressures beyond the region. Rome itself had changed dramatically during the years of his campaigns. Political alliances had weakened, economic tensions had intensified, and the balance of power among leading figures had grown increasingly unstable. Caesar recognized that his future, once secured by military success, now depended on navigating a political landscape far more unpredictable than the battlefields of Gaul. By the end of this part, Gaul stood transformed. Tribal alliances had shifted into administrative provinces. Communities once divided by rivalry now shared common governance. And Caesar's leadership, marked by discipline and clarity, had extended Rome's influence across vast territories. Yet even as he secured the physical landscape of Gaul, the political terrain awaiting him in Rome grew increasingly uncertain. While Caesar strengthened his position in Gaul, events in Rome progressed along a very different trajectory. The political harmony that once defined the First Triumvirate had eroded over time, weakened by personal ambitions, shifting loyalties, and unforeseen disruptions. Crassus, whose wealth and influence had formed one pillar of the alliance, sought military distinction in the east. His campaign against the Parthians ended disastrously at Carrhae, where he was killed in battle. With his death, a crucial balancing force in Roman politics disappeared, altering the dynamics between Caesar and Pompey in lasting ways. Pompey, once a close collaborator of Caesar, gradually drifted toward the senatorial elite. The Senate, recognizing Pompey's growing influence and his uneasy relationship with Caesar, cultivated him as a counterweight to Caesar's rising power. Pompey's marriage to Caesar's daughter Julia had once strengthened their personal connection, but her death, combined with Crassus's loss, removed two stabilizing influences. Pompey began assuming roles that increased his authority in Rome, including responsibilities for grain distribution and security. These developments elevated his status while creating distance between him and Caesar. Caesar observed these changes through reports and letters, understanding that political currents in Rome were shifting in ways that threatened his position. His victories in Gaul brought him increasing prestige, but they also generated suspicion among senators wary of consolidating power. Caesar was aware that returning to Rome without guaranteed protection could leave him vulnerable to prosecution or political marginalization. The Senate debated whether he should relinquish command, arguing that no general should wield military authority for extended periods. These debates reflected growing anxiety about the concentration of power. In response, Caesar sought compromise. He proposed that both he and Pompey relinquish their commands simultaneously, allowing them to return to Rome as private citizens. The proposal aimed to restore balance and reduce suspicion. However, many senators opposed the idea, believing that Pompey, trusted by the Senate, should retain authority while Caesar stepped aside. The imbalance created by this suggestion revealed the degree to which political factions had come to fear Caesar's influence. As tensions increased, Caesar continued strengthening his alliances among Roman citizens and veterans. His commentaries circulated widely, shaping public understanding of his achievements in Gaul. They presented him as a disciplined leader committed to the Republic's security. Many admired his clarity of thought and his ability to manage complex campaigns. These writings enhanced his popularity, making it difficult for opponents to diminish his reputation without provoking backlash from the public. Meanwhile, Caesar maintained communication with Roman officials sympathetic to his cause. He emphasized the importance of stability and proposed solutions that avoided unnecessary conflict. His tone remained measured, reflecting his desire to return to Rome under fair conditions. However, political divisions deepened. Senators favoring Pompey interpreted Caesar's conciliatory gestures as strategic rather than sincere. Their mistrust fueled decisions that made confrontation increasingly likely. During this period, Caesar completed the final phases of organizing Gaul under Roman governance. He ensured that administrative centers functioned effectively, that alliances remained stable, and that military forces were positioned to maintain order during his eventual departure. His approach demonstrated foresight and responsibility. He recognized that long-term stability required efficient administration, not just military control. In Rome, however, the Senate voted to demand that Caesar relinquish his command. The decision, influenced by political concerns, effectively positioned Caesar as a potential threat to the Republic. Caesar understood the implications immediately. If he returned without the protection afforded by his command, he risked legal prosecution orchestrated by his political rivals. The Senate's decree left him with a difficult decision, one that would determine not only his own future, but the future of Rome itself. By the end of this part, the contrast between Gaul's stabilization and Rome's deepening divisions had become unmistakable. Caesar had achieved remarkable success across vast territories, yet his political position had grown more precarious. The alliance that once supported him had dissolved. The Senate viewed him with increasing suspicion, and the path ahead would require decisions that carried profound consequences for the Republic. As Julius Caesar concluded his final administrative duties in Gaul, political tensions in Rome reached their peak. The Senate's demands had become increasingly insistent, pressing Caesar to relinquish his command and return to the capital as a private citizen. Many senators viewed this requirement as essential to restoring balance within the Republic, yet Caesar understood the deeper implications. Without the legal immunity of office or the protection of military authority, he would be vulnerable to prosecution. His opponents, motivated by fear and self-preservation, were prepared to use the courts as a political weapon. Caesar analyzed the situation carefully. Throughout his career, he had favored negotiation over confrontation whenever possible. He had proposed compromises, suggested joint resignations of military commands, and offered to stand for election in absentia to avoid destabilizing the Republic. Each proposal had been rejected. His opponents believed that stripping him of authority was the only way to prevent him from gaining further influence. Caesar recognized that the Senate's increasingly rigid stance left him with few options. The principles he valued, stability, clarity, and fairness, were no longer guiding Rome's political decision-making. Pompey's role in the shifting landscape became increasingly visible. Once a close ally, Pompey now stood aligned with the senatorial faction seeking to limit Caesar's power. His growing influence in Rome, combined with authority over significant military forces, strengthened the Senate's resolve. Caesar understood that Pompey's position had changed not out of personal hostility, but out of political necessity. Yet the effect remained the same. The balance of power that once held the Republic together had fractured. As Caesar prepared to return to Italy, he gathered his closest officers to discuss the situation. He explained the political conditions in Rome with calm clarity, outlining the risks of compliance and the consequences of resistance. His officers, many of whom had served with him for years, understood the stakes. They recognized that surrendering authority without guarantees would expose Caesar to legal attacks orchestrated by political rivals. Their loyalty reflected not only respect for Caesar's leadership, but trust in his judgment and fairness. The decision that followed became one of the most famous in Roman history. Caesar led a single legion, though experienced and fiercely loyal, toward the Rubicon River, the boundary between his provincial command and Italy proper. Crossing this river with armed troops was forbidden by Roman law, as it signaled potential aggression against the state. Caesar paused at the river's edge, aware of the gravity of his decision. He understood that stepping across with his soldiers meant that political conflict would become open civil war. Remaining north of the river, however, meant accepting the risk of political destruction. The moment required clarity. Caesar weighed the legal implications, the expectations of his soldiers, and his responsibility to maintain stability. The Republic was already strained by political polarization, and he believed that submitting to hostile forces would not restore harmony, but embolden those willing to undermine lawful governance. With measured conviction, Caesar stepped across the Rubicon. His statement, later remembered as a symbolic acknowledgement of irrevocable choice, reflected not triumph, but acceptance. The civil war had begun. News of Caesar's movement spread quickly. In Rome, the Senate reacted with alarm, interpreting the crossing as an act of aggression. Many senators fled the city out of fear, while others rallied behind Pompey. Pompey, recognizing that he lacked sufficient forces in Italy to oppose Caesar immediately, withdrew southward, planning to regroup in regions where he held stronger support. His retreat demonstrated both caution and strategic foresight. He believed that time and resources would allow him to build an army capable of challenging Caesar. Caesar entered Italy with deliberate restraint. He issued orders emphasizing the importance of protecting civilians and respecting property. His intention was not to impose fear, but to restore stability in regions affected by political disputes. Towns and cities, uncertain of the future, observed Caesar's calm, disciplined approach and welcomed him without resistance. His actions demonstrated that the civil war, at least on his part, was not driven by personal ambition, but by the necessity of preventing political persecution. As Caesar advanced southward, Pompey continued his withdrawal, evacuating Italy entirely. His departure signaled that the conflict would not be resolved quickly. Caesar understood that the war would extend beyond Italian borders, requiring strategic planning, steady leadership, and careful management of resources. He moved swiftly, securing towns, restoring order, and addressing logistical needs. His officers maintained communication across regions, ensuring that civilian life continued with minimal disruption. By the end of this part, the Republic had crossed a threshold from which it could not easily return. Caesar's decision represented both a protective measure and a commitment to addressing Rome's internal divisions. Pompey's retreat demonstrated that the conflict would expand beyond Italy, and the Roman people, caught between rival visions of leadership, entered a period of profound uncertainty. Civil war had begun, not through impulse, but through a series of decisions shaped by fear, ambition, and the fragile balance of the Republic. With Pompey's withdrawal from Italy, Julius Caesar focused on stabilizing regions affected by political uncertainty. His first priority was ensuring that civilian populations remained safe and that administrative structures continued to function. He issued proclamations emphasizing calm, order, and the protection of property. Communities previously anxious about potential violence observed Roman legions enter their towns with measured discipline rather than force. Caesar's consistent emphasis on restraint helped ease tensions and reinforced his intention to restore stability rather than impose domination. Caesar then turned his attention to consolidating political authority. He entered Rome not as a conqueror, but as someone seeking to re-establish functioning governance. The Senate, fragmented and weakened by internal divisions, had been unable to maintain consistent policy during the crisis. Caesar addressed the remaining senators with clarity, acknowledging their concerns while urging cooperation. He emphasized that the Republic required unity and that the absence of coherent leadership had worsened political instability. His calm approach encouraged cautious collaboration, though many senators remained uncertain of the long-term implications. One of Caesar's immediate challenges involved securing resources for the conflict ahead. Pompey had withdrawn to Greece, where he had access to fleets, experienced commanders, and the support of eastern provinces. Caesar, recognizing the urgency of pursuing him, moved quickly to gather funds, ships, and supplies. He restructured financial systems, stabilized markets shaken by political tension, and ensured that Rome's grain supply remained consistent. These administrative efforts demonstrated Caesar's ability to manage both military and civilian responsibilities simultaneously. Despite his focus on preparation, Caesar remained attentive to broader political dynamics. He restored civil order in regions disrupted by the Senate's earlier flight, addressed legal disputes that had accumulated during the crisis, and reaffirmed commitments to communities loyal to the Republic. His actions reflected awareness that legitimacy depended on balanced governance. He did not seek to dismantle institutions, but to ensure that they functioned more effectively. This approach contrasted with the fears promoted by his opponents, who claimed that Caesar sought absolute power. As Caesar prepared to confront Pompey abroad, he faced logistical challenges. The fleet available to him was limited, and transport across the Adriatic Sea required careful timing and coordination. Nevertheless, he chose to act quickly. He believed that giving Pompey time to consolidate forces would prolong the war and increase the burden on the Roman people. Caesar's willingness to move with limited resources demonstrated confidence in his soldiers' discipline and in his ability to adapt to evolving circumstances. In a display of determination, Caesar crossed the Adriatic with a portion of his forces, landing in Epirus. The journey was difficult, marked by unpredictable weather and the risk of interception by Pompey's naval commanders. Upon landing, Caesar found himself significantly outnumbered, but maintained calm communication with his legates. He ordered fortifications to protect his beachhead and sent messages to his remaining forces, urging them to join him as soon as conditions allowed. His composure during this precarious phase strengthened the morale of his troops, who trusted his judgment even in uncertain circumstances. Pompey, aware of Caesar's arrival, observed his opponent's movements with caution. He recognized Caesar's strategic flexibility and sought to avoid a premature confrontation. Instead, he relied on superior numbers and strong defensive positions, hoping to wear down Caesar's forces through attrition. The two commanders began a series of maneuvers across the region, each attempting to secure favorable ground. Caesar prioritized efficient movement, careful reconnaissance, and steady communication. Pompey focused on avoiding risks while tightening his control over supply routes. As both armies navigated the landscape, the soldiers experienced a mixture of anticipation and exhaustion. The Civil War had taken them far from home, and each side believed that the conflict represented a struggle for the future direction of the Republic. Caesar frequently addressed his troops, offering reassurance and emphasizing the importance of discipline. He maintained predictable routines, ensured that supplies were fairly distributed, and resolved disputes quickly. His leadership strengthened cohesion, enabling the legions to persevere despite challenging circumstances. Meanwhile, political divides deepened back in Rome. Citizens debated the legitimacy of each faction, and alliances shifted as new information arrived from the front. Some feared the implications of prolonged conflict, while others hoped that decisive victory by one side would restore stability. The uncertainty permeated daily life, influencing markets, public gatherings, and private discussions. Yet, amid this uncertainty, many Romans admired Caesar's initiative and viewed his actions as necessary to restore balance. By the end of this part, the civil war had entered a global stage. Caesar was now committed to confronting Pompey directly. Pompey, supported by senators and allied provinces, prepared for a decisive engagement, and the Republic, divided by competing visions of leadership, moved closer to a conflict that would reshape its structure forever. As Julius Caesar continued maneuvering through Greece, the strategic balance of the civil war grew increasingly delicate. He remained significantly outnumbered by Pompey's forces, which included not only Roman legions, but large contingents from allied provinces. Pompey's control of the sea allowed him to secure stable supply lines, while Caesar, lacking naval strength, depended on rapid movement and relentless discipline. Despite these disadvantages, Caesar maintained confidence in the cohesion of his legions and trusted their ability to adapt under pressure. His leadership during this period reflected a blend of strategic patience and willingness to seize opportunity when conditions allowed. The early months of the campaign became a test of endurance for both armies. Caesar sought to draw Pompey into battle on terms favorable to the legions, while Pompey aimed to avoid direct confrontation until hunger and exhaustion weakened Caesar's troops. The two commanders engaged in a series of calculated maneuvers, crossing rivers, fortifying camps, and contesting supply routes. Caesar's legions demonstrated remarkable resilience, marching long distances in difficult terrain, constructing defensive works, and maintaining discipline despite limited resources. Their confidence in Caesar allowed them to persist through conditions that might have broken less experienced forces. For Pompey, the challenge lay in balancing caution with the expectations of the senators who accompanied him. Many believed that Caesar's forces were vulnerable and urged Pompey to force a decisive battle. Pompey, aware of Caesar's tactical flexibility, resisted pressure and remained focused on preserving his strategic advantage. He recognized that Caesar's strength lay not in numbers, but in experience and cohesion. By delaying large-scale conflict, Pompey hoped to diminish Caesar's capacity for sustained resistance. Caesar, understanding that time worked against him, sought opportunities to alter the strategic landscape. He attempted to cut Pompey off from critical supply lines and to pressure the Senate-aligned forces into making mistakes. These efforts resulted in several skirmishes where Caesar's troops demonstrated agility and discipline. Though not decisive, these engagements reinforced Caesar's morale and reminded Pompey that Caesar remained capable of swift and unexpected action. Caesar's officers, aware of the broader stakes, coordinated movements with care, ensuring that every maneuver supported the larger strategic goal of securing a position suitable for major engagement. A turning point came when Caesar succeeded in crossing into the region of Thessaly. The fertile plains offered better prospects for food and allowed Caesar to stabilize supply shortages. Pompey followed, unwilling to abandon the pursuit. But the shift in terrain altered the dynamic between the armies. Caesar used this moment to reorganize his forces, restore their strength, and prepare for the possibility of a decisive confrontation. His calm approach reassured the legions, who understood that their endurance had brought them to a region where conditions favored renewed momentum. The two armies eventually positioned themselves near a place called Pharsalus, a wide plain suitable for a large-scale battle. Caesar recognized the significance immediately. He understood that the conflict between him and Pompey had reached a stage where avoidance was no longer viable. Political pressures, logistical demands, and the expectations of both armies pointed toward impending confrontation. Caesar prepared his troops with measured confidence, reviewing formations, reinforcing discipline, and ensuring that officers understood the plan clearly. His leadership remained focused not on grand speeches, but on clarity, consistency, and the reassurance of steady presence. Pompey, facing increasing pressure from senators eager for resolution, agreed to engage. He believed that his superior numbers and cavalry strength gave him a decisive advantage. His battle plan reflected confidence in overwhelming Caesar's flanks and breaking the formation of the legions. Yet Pompey also understood the weight of responsibility. A defeat would not simply affect military fortunes, it would alter the political structure of Rome. His calm demeanor concealed the complexity of his position, balancing strategic planning with the expectations of those who relied upon him. As both armies made their final preparations, the atmosphere across the plain was one of quiet tension. Soldiers checked equipment, officers reviewed assignments, and scouts surveyed the terrain. The decision before them would shape the fate of the Republic. Yet amid the gravity of the moment, Caesar remained composed. He understood not only the tactical implications of the coming battle, but the broader consequences for Rome. His goal, as always, was to restore stability, even if doing so required confronting an opponent he had once considered an ally. By the end of this part, the stage was set for one of the most consequential battles in Roman history. Both armies had reached the point where retreat was no longer an option. Caesar's leadership and Pompey's caution had brought them to a decisive moment, a moment in which the future of the Republic would be determined not in the Senate, but on the open plain of Pharsalus. The morning of the battle opened with calm weather and clear visibility across the plain. Caesar positioned his forces with deliberate precision, arranging his legions in 3 lines with a small 4th line held in reserve. He anticipated that Pompey would rely heavily on his superior cavalry and designed his formation to counter this anticipated advantage. Caesar's officers communicated the plan throughout the ranks, ensuring that each cohort understood its role. The soldiers, experienced from years of campaigning, prepared themselves quietly, aware that discipline and coordination would determine the outcome. Pompey deployed his forces according to his expectations of Roman warfare. He placed his strongest cavalry on his left flank, intending to overwhelm Caesar's right and collapse his formation from the side. Behind them, he positioned archers and slingers to support the advance. His infantry occupied the center and right, forming a broad line that extended beyond Caesar's. Pompey's plan reflected confidence in his numerical superiority and the belief that a concentrated cavalry strike would quickly break Caesar's defenses. Senators accompanying Pompey observed the preparations with anticipation, convinced that their cause would soon prevail. When Pompey ordered the advance, his cavalry moved rapidly toward Caesar's right flank. The attack was forceful and coordinated, reflecting Pompey's expectation of a swift breakthrough. Caesar's right-wing infantry held their ground firmly, resisting the initial pressure. At the crucial moment, Caesar commanded his reserve line to engage. These soldiers, positioned specifically to counter the cavalry, advanced with discipline and precision. They used their spears to disrupt the momentum of Pompey's riders, forcing them back and breaking their formation. The unexpected resistance shifted the dynamic of the battle. With Pompey's cavalry in disarray, Caesar ordered his infantry to advance. The legions moved forward steadily, maintaining formation despite the intensity of the conflict. Their years of experience in Gaul had forged them into a cohesive and adaptable force. Pompey's infantry, though numerous, lacked the same depth of shared hardship and unified training. As the lines clashed, Caesar's soldiers gradually gained advantage, pressing their opponents back. The Roman battlefield, once a place of calculated maneuvers, now became a contest of endurance and cohesion. Pompey attempted to regroup, issuing commands to stabilize his lines, but the disruption of the cavalry had ripple effects across his formation. His slingers and archers, without protection, became vulnerable to counterattack. Caesar's forces exploited these vulnerabilities with steady pressure. The senators, observing the battle, realized too late that the tide had shifted. Their expectations of a swift victory dissolved as the cohesion of Pompey's forces weakened under the sustained advance of Caesar's legions. At a decisive moment, Caesar ordered his troops to press forward across the entire front. The coordinated movement applied overwhelming pressure on Pompey's infantry. The opposing line began to collapse, retreating toward their fortified camp in disorganized waves. Pompey, witnessing the collapse, understood that the battle was lost. His retreat from the field reflected not cowardice, but the recognition that further resistance would lead to unnecessary casualties. He moved quickly to secure escape routes, seeking refuge beyond Caesar's reach. Caesar, maintaining discipline among his troops, ensured that the pursuit remained controlled. He understood the importance of preventing chaos and preserving the structure of his army. As Pompey fled toward the coast, Caesar focused on securing the battlefield and addressing the needs of wounded soldiers. His approach reflected a consistent commitment to order and responsibility, even in the aftermath of overwhelming victory. The legions, though fatigued, followed his guidance with respect. Pompey's flight marked a turning point in the civil war. He sought refuge in Egypt, hoping to regroup and gain support from foreign allies. Caesar, aware of the broader political implications, prepared to follow. Yet the news that reached him soon after altered the trajectory of the conflict. Pompey had been killed by advisors to the Egyptian throne who hoped that eliminating him would earn Caesar's favor. The news struck Caesar with solemnity rather than triumph. He had pursued Pompey as a political rival, not as a personal enemy. His response reflected regret for the loss of a leader who had once been a respected ally. The Battle of Pharsalus reshaped the political landscape of the Roman world. Caesar emerged as the dominant figure, recognized for both strategic brilliance and disciplined leadership. Pompey's defeat signaled the collapse of senatorial resistance, and the Republic entered a new phase, one defined by reconstruction, reorganization, and the challenges of restoring unity after civil war. By the end of this part, Caesar stood at the apex of his military career. But ahead of him lay new complexities: foreign diplomacy, internal reform, and the delicate process of stabilizing a fractured republic. After the victory at Pharsalus, Julius Caesar faced a complex transition from military confrontation to political reconstruction. Pompey's flight from Greece had left the civil war unresolved, and Caesar understood that stability depended on preventing rival factions from regrouping. He followed Pompey to Egypt, anticipating that the former general might attempt to rebuild support there. Instead, Caesar arrived to find that Pompey had been killed upon landing, an act intended by the young Egyptian rulers to earn Caesar's favor. Caesar received the news with quiet disappointment. Pompey had been a political rival, not a personal enemy, and Caesar preferred lawful resolution over abrupt violence. The political climate in Egypt presented Caesar with new challenges. The kingdom was ruled by young monarchs, Ptolemy the Mented and his sister Cleopatra VII, caught in a struggle for dominance. Their advisors viewed Caesar's arrival as an opportunity to secure Roman support, but the internal conflict made the situation delicate. Caesar approached the matter with caution, recognizing that stability in the region required a clear and lawful resolution. He called for both siblings to present their claims, positioning himself not as a conqueror, but as a mediator acting in the interest of peace. Cleopatra, aware of the significance of Caesar's presence, sought an audience with him under unconventional circumstances. Her strategic entrance, described by ancient historians, demonstrated her understanding of diplomacy and presentation. Caesar recognized her intelligence and ambition, qualities that aligned with his own appreciation for capable leadership. Their relationship, both political and personal, emerged from this context. Cleopatra's ability to articulate her position with clarity strengthened her claim, and Caesar decided to support her in the ongoing succession dispute. This decision placed Caesar at odds with Ptolemy III's advisors, who refused to accept Cleopatra's reinstatement. Tensions escalated into open conflict, marking the beginning of the Alexandrian War. Caesar, with a relatively small contingent of Roman troops, found himself defending positions within the city against a larger Egyptian force. He relied heavily on engineering skills, strategic positioning, and precise coordination to maintain control. The fighting took place within dense urban environments, requiring adaptability from soldiers more accustomed to open-field engagements. During the conflict, Caesar demonstrated his trademark composure. He coordinated defenses, organized reinforcements, and ensured that supply lines remained functional despite the constraints of the city. His ability to remain calm under pressure helped maintain morale among his troops, who faced both logistical challenges and complex terrain. Cleopatra, aligned with Caesar, worked to secure support from Egyptian factions sympathetic to her return. Their coordinated efforts gradually shifted the balance of the conflict. A turning point came when reinforcements from Rome and allied eastern territories arrived, strengthening Caesar's position. With additional manpower and improved supply access, Caesar launched an offensive that weakened the forces loyal to Ptolemy III. After several engagements, the young king's army suffered significant defeat, and Ptolemy himself drowned while attempting to flee across the Nile. With opposition neutralized, Cleopatra was installed as Egypt's primary ruler, sharing the throne with her younger brother according to tradition. Caesar's involvement in Egypt extended beyond resolving the succession dispute. He spent time stabilizing the region, addressing economic issues, and ensuring that Egypt remained aligned with Roman interests. Cleopatra's leadership offered continuity, and her cooperation with Caesar created a mutually beneficial relationship. During this period, Caesar and Cleopatra developed a personal connection, though Caesar's actions remained guided by political responsibility. He understood that a stable Egypt contributed to broader Mediterranean security. Despite the relative calm achieved in Egypt, Caesar knew that unresolved conflicts awaited him across the Roman world. Opposition to his leadership persisted in Africa, Spain, and other provinces where Pompeian loyalists regrouped. His time in Alexandria, though productive, marked only one phase of a larger journey toward restoring order. As soon as conditions allowed, Caesar prepared to depart, leaving Egypt under stable governance and returning his focus to the remaining threats to the Republic. By the end of this part, Caesar had resolved the Alexandrian conflict, restored order in a critical region, and strengthened alliances that would support Rome's stability. Yet the broader civil war remained unfinished, and new challenges awaited him across the Mediterranean. With Egypt stabilized, Caesar shifted his attention to the remaining strongholds of Pompeian resistance. These forces, though scattered, remained determined to challenge Caesar's authority and preserve their interpretation of the Republic's political structure. The largest concentration of opposition lay in North Africa, where commanders loyal to Pompey had reorganized and established fortified positions. Caesar understood that defeating these factions was essential to restoring lasting unity. He prepared his troops calmly, focusing on replenishing supplies and ensuring that morale remained steady after the difficult Alexandrian campaign. Upon arriving in North Africa, Caesar encountered a challenging environment. The terrain, climate, and supply conditions demanded careful planning. Pompeian commanders such as Metellus Scipio and Cato the Younger had established strong defensive positions supported by local forces familiar with the region. Caesar approached the situation with measured strategy. He avoided rushing into battle, instead assessing enemy positions securing supply lines, and strengthening alliances with local communities. This methodical approach demonstrated his commitment to minimizing unnecessary risk. The decisive confrontation occurred near Thapsus, where Caesar's forces met the Pompeian army in open combat. Caesar arranged his legions with clear precision, relying on the experience and adaptability they had developed over years of campaigning. The battle unfolded swiftly. Caesar's discipline and organization proved superior to the disjointed coordination among Pompeian forces. Despite their determination, the opposition could not withstand the sustained pressure of Caesar's legions. The victory at Thapsus effectively ended major resistance in Africa. In the aftermath, several prominent figures chose to end their lives, unwilling to accept reconciliation under Caesar's authority. Cato the Younger, a steadfast defender of senatorial ideals, died by suicide, an act later remembered as a symbol of philosophical commitment. Caesar received the news with solemn reflection. Though political opponents, he respected Cato's resolve and lamented the loss of a man who had served the Republic with sincerity. His response reflected the complexity of civil conflict, where victory carried not only relief, but deep awareness of the human cost. Following the African campaign, Caesar turned to Hispania, where Pompey's surviving sons had rallied further resistance. The region, marked by difficult terrain and strong local loyalties, posed significant challenges. Caesar marched with determination, recognizing that resolving this final stronghold was essential to preventing future insurrections. The decisive battle occurred at Munda, a fierce engagement where Pompeian forces fought with remarkable intensity. Caesar's legions, though experienced, faced one of their toughest challenges. Caesar himself moved along the lines, encouraging his troops and reinforcing critical positions. In the end, discipline prevailed. The Pompeian forces were defeated, and the last major military opposition to Caesar's leadership collapsed. With this victory, the civil war that had begun with the crossing of the Rubicon reached its conclusion. Caesar stood as the undisputed leader of the Roman world, not through ambition alone, but through years of strategic clarity, consistent leadership, and commitment to restoring stability. The legions, exhausted yet loyal, recognized that their long journey had reshaped the Republic in lasting ways. With military resistance extinguished, Caesar returned to Rome to address the challenges of governance. He focused on administrative reform, debt relief, calendar correction, and improvements to infrastructure, projects designed to rebuild trust and create long-term stability. His approach reflected a blend of practicality and vision. He sought to streamline complex systems, reduce corruption, and create conditions that would support a more orderly society. For many Romans, these reforms brought clarity and relief after years of uncertainty. Yet, despite the accomplishments, underlying political tensions persisted. Some feared the concentration of authority in Caesar's hands, even as they benefited from his reforms. Others believed that strong leadership was necessary to guide Rome through its transition. Caesar understood these concerns and worked to balance authority with inclusivity. He expanded the Senate, offered clemency to former opponents, and emphasized unity. His actions reflected genuine interest in healing divisions, though not all were willing to accept reconciliation. By the end of this part, Caesar had overcome the last remnants of armed resistance, restored stability across the Mediterranean, and taken significant steps toward rebuilding the Republic's administrative and social foundations. Yet the complexities of political authority in Rome remained unresolved, and the final chapter of Caesar's life would unfold not on a battlefield but within the Senate itself. With the civil wars concluded, Julius Caesar returned to Rome, determined to rebuild a republic deeply strained by years of conflict. He approached governance with the same methodical clarity that had guided his military campaigns, focusing on practical reforms that improved daily life. His first steps addressed economic instability. He revised debt laws, stabilized the grain supply, and ensured that veterans received land without displacing vulnerable communities. These decisions reflected his commitment to restoring social balance, not expanding personal power. Caesar believed that a stable republic required fair systems, predictable governance, and renewed trust among its citizens. He also undertook administrative reforms. Recognizing inefficiencies in the provincial tax structure, Caesar implemented measures that reduced corruption and ensured more transparent oversight. He expanded the Senate, incorporating representatives from Italian municipalities and provincial elites. This expansion aimed to create a more inclusive governing body, one that reflected Rome's broader population. Some welcomed the change, viewing it as a step toward unity. Others, however, saw it as a challenge to traditional Roman aristocracy, believing that Caesar was diluting their influence. One of Caesar's most lasting achievements emerged from his interest in science and timekeeping. He reformed the Roman calendar, replacing an inconsistent lunar system with a solar-based structure aligned more closely with the natural year. This Julian calendar provided clarity and stability, ensuring predictable seasons and more accurate scheduling for civic and agricultural activities. The reform required careful adjustment and collaboration with astronomers, reflecting Caesar's willingness to engage with complex topics for the benefit of the entire republic. Despite these positive developments, unease persisted among certain political circles. Some senators worried about Caesar's growing authority, fearing that he might transition from a stabilizing leader into a permanent ruler. The title of dictator for 10 years, granted to him as an emergency measure, deepened this concern. Though the role aimed to restore order rather than eliminate republican principles, critics interpreted the position as a sign of monarchical ambition. Caesar's swift decision-making and broad influence magnified these fears, even when his actions were grounded in practicality rather than domination. Caesar remained aware of the tension. He attempted to address concerns through gestures of clemency and inclusivity. He pardoned former enemies, restored property to families affected by the war, and emphasized forgiveness over retribution. These acts of leniency earned him respect among many citizens, but did little to ease the anxiety of those who believed that traditional republican authority was slipping away. The political landscape reflected a complex mixture of gratitude, admiration, caution, and quiet fear. Amid these developments, Caesar planned new projects aimed at long-term prosperity. He envisioned infrastructure improvements, expansions of citizenship, and urban renewal programs. He also contemplated campaigns beyond Rome's borders, believing that stabilizing the frontiers would protect the Republic from external threats. These plans demonstrated his characteristic blend of ambition and responsibility, yet they also reinforced the impression that Caesar's leadership was becoming more centralized, prompting further debate among senatorial elites. By the end of this part, Caesar's Rome was a place of optimism mixed with uncertainty. His reforms brought renewed stability and improved the lives of countless citizens. Yet the very strength of his leadership created new pressures that would soon crystallize into one of the most consequential decisions in Roman history. As Julius Caesar approached the final months of his life, political currents in Rome grew increasingly complicated. His clemency, intended to heal divisions, inadvertently empowered some who opposed his growing influence. A small group of senators, driven by a mixture of fear, idealism, and personal rivalry, began discussing the possibility of removing Caesar permanently. They believed that preventing the perceived erosion of republican principles required decisive action. Their motivations varied, but together they formed a conspiracy that would alter the course of Roman history. Caesar, meanwhile, continued to work on administrative and military plans. He prepared for a campaign against Parthia, believing that stabilizing Rome's eastern frontier would protect the Republic and strengthen its global position. His attention remained focused on organizing resources, delegating responsibilities and ensuring that Rome maintained steady governance in his absence. He remained unaware of the depth of resentment forming within the Senate. His trust in clemency led him to underestimate the willingness of forgiven adversaries to engage in drastic actions. In March of 44 BCE, Rome prepared for several public ceremonies, and Caesar's schedule grew increasingly full. Friends and advisors occasionally expressed concern about political tensions, but Caesar dismissed warnings, believing that his efforts toward forgiveness and unity had neutralized hostility. His confidence reflected his natural disposition toward reason and stability. He preferred addressing challenges through dialogue and reform, not through suspicion. On the morning of the Ides of March, Caesar made his way toward a meeting of the Senate held in the theater of Pompey. The setting, symbolic in its connection to his former ally and rival, reflected the complex layering of Roman politics. As Caesar entered the hall, he was surrounded by senators, some supportive, others quietly aligned with the conspiracy. The atmosphere carried a stillness that belied the intentions of those who had planned the event. The attack unfolded quickly. The conspirators, acting in coordinated fashion, surrounded Caesar and struck with concealed blades. His death, violent and abrupt, contrasted sharply with the calm clarity that had characterized his life. News of the assassination spread rapidly across Rome, generating confusion, fear, and profound uncertainty. Many citizens mourned the loss of a leader who had brought stability after years of civil conflict. Others remained unsure of what the future would bring, as the conspirators had no unified plan for restoring order. In the days that followed, Rome entered a period of turbulence. The assassins believed that removing Caesar would revive the Republic, but the opposite occurred. Without Caesar's stabilizing presence, political alliances fractured further, and new struggles for power emerged. The vacuum left by his death generated conflict among rising figures, ultimately leading to another cycle of civil war. The legacy of Caesar's leadership became a foundation for new structures, influencing political developments for generations. Yet Caesar's influence endured beyond the immediate aftermath. His reforms shaped economic, administrative, and civic structures long after his death. The Julian calendar continued to guide timekeeping for centuries. His writings offered insight into strategy, leadership, and political clarity. His clemency, though imperfect in execution, reflected an attempt to heal rather than punish. Even in death, Caesar remained a defining figure, a leader whose life captured the complexity of ambition, responsibility, and the changing nature of the Roman Republic. By the end of this part, Caesar's story had reached its conclusion. His life, marked by clarity, discipline, and decisive leadership, had transformed Rome in ways both immediate and enduring. His death, sudden and calculated, revealed the fragility of political structures built on fear and mistrust. As we arrive at the end of this documentary, the life of Julius Caesar rests quietly within the larger story of Rome, an empire shaped by ambition, conflict, and profound change. Caesar's journey carried him from modest beginnings to the heights of military and political leadership. Through patience, strategic insight, and steady resolve, he shaped the future of nations and left a legacy that continues to influence the world today. In reflecting on his life, we see both the power of disciplined leadership and the complexity of human institutions. Caesar's decisions brought stability to regions long marked by unrest, yet the fears they inspired also revealed the limits of political trust. His reforms improved life for countless citizens, even as they raised questions about authority and tradition. His legacy, therefore, is not a simple story of triumph or tragedy, but a nuanced reminder of the challenges faced by all who seek to guide a society through turbulent times. As we close this story, allow the images of ancient Rome to fade gently into quiet. The forum settles into stillness, the legions return to their camps, and the voices of history soften into silence. You have walked through the rise, the struggles, and the final chapters of one of history's most influential lives. May this calm journey bring you a sense of clarity, peace, and understanding. And may the quiet lessons of Julius Caesar's life linger softly as you rest.